but Dejark is definitely out.
Welcome to the Star Wars Collectors Archive podcast. It's the Vintage Pod, a monthly audio magazine dedicated to vintage Star Wars toys and memorabilia. Hosted by Sky Payne, Fudd, and Stephen B. Danley. Market data mined by Brisbane Mike and Fratastic Pete. With tech support by The Low Art. In this month's Vintage Pod, we have a renamed Roundtable featuring Sithsonian Curator and Star Wars completist Duncan Jenkins, who tells us about Aqua Fun and how to rock 20 iron-on shirts at once. We are also joined by Han-Hoth collector and 12back.com webmaster CJ Fawcett, who teaches us the meaning of the words molded legs, skew, soft copy, and rubber, plus the origin of Gonk and the mysterious mystery boxes on this month's Chive Cast Vintage Pod.
Wampa Wampa.
Welcome to the Vintage Pod number 38.
Yep, for March here. Although, I was thinking, Steve, at some month we should probably just skip ahead. And because, this is really the April podcast, because we're recording in the middle of March, but everyone knows I'm going to release it on March 31st.
That's right, at like 11:59.
Yeah, so we could talk about Easters or, St. Patrick's Day. I had to go and find a little leprechaun toy to put in my kid's leprechaun trap.
Oh man.
It's a thing now, Steve. You gotta every holiday you gotta go out and buy some garbage.
I had no idea that leprechaun traps were for real. Man, that's...
Well, okay, I'll tell you the truth about it later. But
all right.
Anyways, yeah, it's exciting, Steve. We always start off with the and it was Han-Hoth, so I was thinking about bringing out the only theological debate in all of Star Wars, where Hoth says, "I'll see you in hell."
Oh yeah.
Which then makes you wonder, what does hell look like if you are not bound to one Earth? But I'm not going to talk about that, Steve.
Okay, we'll leave that for another time.
But what I am going to talk about is, I've been thinking about it because, well, you get ready, Space Freaks, because we're going to have another Roundtable episode.
That's right.
And I was trying to think, how can I make that more Star Wars-y? And I was like, I don't know, boring conference table on the Death Star, or this or that. And then I thought, there it is, the Dejarik table. But then I realized we're vintage, so we can't use an EU name. So I'm thinking, what do you think, Steve? We call it the Hollow Chess table.
Yeah, I think that works.
Right?
Yeah.
Or even Space Chess, because that's what it used to be called back in the day. Hey, there's a call for the old listeners. Was that called Space Chess back in the day, or was it called Hollow Chess?
Ooh, I kind of like Space Chess.
Yeah, because Hollow Chess sounds like, I don't know, Star Trekky,
Maybe a little, yeah.
I know we're blurring the lines. So anyways, this month's movie observation actually comes from my brother Amos.
Ooh.
Because, he listens to the show. We've talked about it a lot. He listens to it mainly because I don't answer my phone very often.
It's your only line of communication.
Yeah, my only line of communication. So if you're out there listening, hey, brother. But he made this point. He's like, you got to put this in the show. And he's had a couple of these, but this one is related to Space Chess. And that is, what's the famous line from the Space Chess scene?
About letting the Wookiee win.
Right, okay, you got to let the Wookiee win. Now, let's think about the reasoning, Steve. And this is kind of getting into your territory because I found the script.
Okay.
Han Solo says, that's because droids don't pull people's arms out of their sockets when they lose.
Right.
Now, this is a great line, right? That's what prompts to let the Wookiee win.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make any sense if you actually look at the sentence. Droids don't pull people's, first of all.
Yeah.
R2-D2 is not a people's. And then arms. R2-D2 doesn't have arms. He has legs. So it's really not much of a threat at all. I'd be like, if we were having a fight, right? Or something like we were about to get in a fight, like, oh, better be careful, Steve. Sky is known to pull the bark off a tree. You wouldn't stop fighting me.
No, I think that wouldn't be a deterrent. If anything, I don't know, it might be the opposite.
Yeah, so anyways, that's that was thanks to Amos. And actually too, Steve, I realized I've never done this before, where I ask for something, but he actually asked me to put a call out for the the little lobby card book that came out in the 80s.
Uh-huh.
It's got like pictures and stuff, and it's one of the first things you could actually get. So if anyone has one of those really cheap, just contact us. How can you contact us, Steve?
Let's see, we got a new email address, don't we?
That's right.
Yeah, you gotta keep wanting to say chivecast@gmail.com, but I know that's wrong.
Well, if you send one to chivecast@gmail.com, it will go there, but it's thevintagepod@gmail.com.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, we'll get more into the name change later. And also, it's been probably, 5-6 months that we've had the Steve Flips the Script section. And this is where Steve pours through the script archive at the American Film Institute.
Writers Guild Foundation.
The Writers Guild Foundation of the American Film Institute. And he has access to all of the drafts, original archival paper.
It's getting really, really hot in here.
Flip the script. Flip the script.
So, Steve, what do you want to talk to us today about in Flip the Script?
All right, so I think this month it's Han-Hoth related, but it kind of goes off on a tangent, which never stops us. Not at all. But this month I was reading that first exchange between Han and General Riken, or Riken, however you want to pronounce it, where he's describing how dangerous it is for him to really be there, and he says to him, and this is in the Kasdan revision. Every day more bounty hunters are searching for me. If I don't pay off Jabba soon, there'll be too many to stop. Remotes, Gonk killers, and who knows what else. So when I saw that, I'm like, wait a minute. Gonk killers? This has to be the earliest incarnation of that word. So I did a little bit of research to figure out where the word Gonk came from.
Okay.
And so I found some of those great old Usenet discussion posts.
Okay, so just to get super old school, we'll talk maybe a little bit to CJ and Duncan about this in our special section, but before there was Rebel Scum, before there was message boards, there were these Usenet boards. And
right.
Someday we'll have Tommy Garvey come on to talk about the history of those.
Yeah. And this goes all the way back to rec.arts.sf.Star Wars, which is like that was my introduction to vintage, really, was getting on that Usenet. And so there's a guy that goes by the name of Sean Sullivan, and according...
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
That's right. According to Sean, he writes, this is his post from about 2001. He writes, you see, about 8 years ago, I made a post to a Star Wars Usenet group coining the term Gonk to refer to the two-legged power droid that shows up in every movie. Within days, there was an ongoing fervor of activity, and Gonk became a national figurehead. Now, years later, it seems to be an accepted term, both officially and colloquially. But I could never prove this claim, so I stewed in silence, agonizing and honest silence, since I couldn't demonstrate the fact.
Wait, so he said 8 years ago on a Usenet forum in 2001?
Well, see, this is... Yeah, in 2001, he's referring to another post from 1993.
Oh, my God.
And he have that, too, so it goes back even further. And
wait, what is he, a part of the National Defense Squad?
Maybe, I don't know.
93. I mean, I was super early. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
This is 93. I think I was on there in, 95. So I got it for my 10th birthday. It was, AOL Internet. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, so this is...
Did you ever have that... I remember that thing. I had the first couple of versions of AOL, and they used to have a button that just said Internet. And you would click on it, and nothing would happen.
Oh, I never actually got the supposed internet to work.
Yeah.
I mean, it never actually, materialized. But the Usenet groups did work, thankfully. That was the lowest common denominator.
Right.
So anyway, you go back to 9/10/93, and this is the original, according to that. Here it is, by far the best character in the Star Wars universe, and he describes the power droid. Not only is he a prolific actor, but he's also perhaps he has the most perceptive lines in the film. He just says Gonk. So he ends it with all bow down before Gonk, and it got some good reception there. But I just feel terrible for having to tell Sean that he was not the guy who coined the term Gonk. It was actually Lawrence Kasdan, until proven otherwise in 1978.
Wow, that's amazing. But Steve, I mean, it's amazing how well our two sides connect, because my whole thing was about, well, who cares? Why would a droid care if a Wookiee tore the arms off of a person?
Yeah.
But here, he's actually saying he's being chased by Gonk killers.
Yeah.
So that could be people who kill Gonks.
That's true.
Not killer
killer
droids.
Yeah. Hey,
Wow.
that's a good point. He does get tortured in the Return of the Jedi, and they just may have the short end of the stick. I don't know.
It's true. Maybe Lawrence Kasdan was actually talking about the EV-88, right? Oh wait, his name's not EV88.
You just merged the two. That's okay.
Oh my god. All right. Well, it's not like I host a podcast about vintage Star Wars toys or anything.
That doesn't matter.
Yeah, awesome, Steve. Well, that's really cool that Han was afraid of the Gonk killers. He was terrified of 88. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Dejarik and speaking of our Space Chess Roundtable, we are going to be expanding this conversation, and we're going to be talking to not Chris Georgoulias. I believe this is the first time we've ever not called him when we said we were going to call somebody.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking to CJ Fawcett and Duncan Jenkins. So I think just out of simplicity, you know what, Steve? I've got enough time in the month. I guess I'm going to have to come up with a drop for the Space Chess Roundtable. So that's going to take the place of the news drop, which I've been kind of taking out anyways because, I don't know, there's this other Serge Gainsbourg song I like more. So let's get ready to hear whatever kind of new drop I come up with. And on the other side, we'll talk to Duncan and CJ.
Take a seat at the board with the Space Chess Roundtable here on the Vintage Pod.
It is a silly place.
I see your point, sir.
All right, Steve, we've got our second official roundtable here, and we can actually ask them because, well, why not ask the guest? We're trying to decide what sounds better for the podcast. Should it be the Dejarik table, the hollow chess table, or the space chess table? What do you think, Chris Fawcett?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Oh, so
is it you're naming this episode?
No, we're naming this segment. So whenever we have more than one
segment.
person, like a round table is boring, right?
Yeah,
so,
okay.
Should we call it the hollow chess
Gotcha.
round table, the space chess round? We're going with space chess as of now, but I don't know what you guys think.
I think I like that one the best.
Yeah, you think so too, Duncan? We should keep it space chess.
I'm a little contrary. I guess I would prefer hollow chess, but Dejarik is definitely out.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, it's funny because the first shirt that I ever made for Celebration, well, actually, my brother made it, but it's a parody of the Chessmen cookies, and my brother, he made Dejarik men. And I remember thinking, how come none of the vintage collectors think this is funny? But anyway, Steve, that was
at the time they probably didn't know what the word meant.
Yeah, it's true. But I'm being a terrible host, Steve. So now that we are at the space chess or hollow chess roundtable, let's introduce our guests. The first person here is Duncan Jenkins, who we've talked a lot about him as an author and as a contributor. But how do you like to best be known, Duncan, as a collector?
He's a really nice guy, maybe. No, I'm a completist.
Okay. What does that mean to you?
I enjoy everything Star Wars, whether it's old or new, whether it's belt buckles to bubble bath or 12 backs to whatever the other one is. I can't remember off the top of my head, sorry. But just anything that's out there, I really like it.
Awesome, great. And let's see, your last book was the cast and crew, right?
That's correct.
I mean, do you want to plug it or something? Or I mean, I guess we all pretty much own it by now. But where can people go to buy books written by Duncan and some other guy?
Yeah, there's another guy whose name is Gus. Some of you might be familiar with him.
Right.
And Gus and I have written 3 books now. And the best place to get those is either at completistpublications.com or at paizo.com, Paizo.com. But they're also available on Amazon.
Awesome. And you also have maybe the best named collection. I don't know. I've always really enjoyed the name of your collection. What do you call your collection, Duncan?
It's the Sithsonian.
Yeah, that's just beautiful. And I think you can get away with it too from a vintage snob standpoint, because at least on the back of the Topps cards they said Dark Lord of the Sith. So it's not too prequel-y,
Exactly. Vader was a Sith back at the very beginning. We always wondered what exactly that was. Then we found out that there's only 2 of them. But yeah, we definitely enjoyed the Sith, and so I thought Sithsonian was a perfect name.
Right, yeah, that's awesome. Let's see. And so then we've been talking about whether or not we should call. What do you think, Steve? I think probably should call him CJ just because there's so many Chris's in the hobby that.
Yeah, that's true. I've always thought of him as CJ. So
Okay,
Yeah, that's fine by me.
all right, so CJ, why would you be on this podcast where we're talking about Han-Hoth?
Well, that is my character collection, and goes probably all the way back to, oh gosh, probably 1996.
Wow.
And I remember, like, me and John Wooten from the Ohio Club kind of pioneered that whole collected character kind of a thing way back then. And so, that's why I'm here this time. I guess you guys are doing Han-Hoth today, so.
Yeah, we are. And it turns out there's a lot of different subjects of debate. First of all, am I the only one, Steve, who always thought he was wearing sunglasses in the figure? Did you feel that too, Steve?
no, I got the sunglasses vibe too.
Yeah, and did you have the same thing, CJ?
No, I kind of always, just thought it was goggles, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Not so much sunglasses.
Oh, well, that's how I always felt it. And then also we're gonna talk later about websites. Now, what is the status of your website, CJ? 12back.com.
The status is I probably haven't updated it in probably 8 years, so it's it's pretty dated. Like
It's a
it looks
classic,
like
CJ. It's a
yeah,
classic.
it has a classic theme going on. I did that intentionally by not updating it for 8 years, but I run my email through there, and I like it's there, it's done. I don't update it much, but it was kind of one of the earlier sites for production stuff. So I just kind of leave it up there for posterity's sake.
Well, it's great. I think that I don't know. I like the articles on the archive about the pre-production process, but Chris Gerglius is writing on there. I don't know. It's like all on one page, and it's pretty easy to scroll through.
Yeah.
So
That's probably the best part that's still up there. There's some really interesting stories. The Han-Hoth affair, that whole big transcript of that whole thing is still up on there, which is just a fascinating and crazy story if you haven't read it. So, and like you said, there's a few kind of interesting articles there, like making of a figure that Chris wrote up that's a little more maybe concise than on the archive, and a couple other ones, one on Rocket Fett, one on Final Cave Jabba Bubbles, and things like that. So.
well, great. I think it's later we're going to talk about the difference in the way that sites are made now versus the way they were made then. Because I also have a Star Wars website that I haven't updated in several years, and every year it's like, would you like to pay the fee again? I'm like, yeah, I'll keep paying it. I'm not going to do anything with it, but anyways, well, I think now let's kind of get to discussion. And I was talking last month, Duncan, with with Jimmy Mack from Rebel Force Radio, formerly the Forcecast, and he quoted you as saying that you prefer the stories of Star Wars over the memorabilia. First of all, is that correct, or was Gus just talking for you?
No, that was, I remember the interview that we had that with them, and so when he mentioned that, I was kind of actually surprised that he remembered that time. But it's what was the paramount, or what is the precedent for us is the movies, not the toys. And I was giving him a story where I had just been to JediCon in Germany and was talking with a lot of the vintage collectors that were out there, and it was very interesting because there were Star Wars activities that were going on, and a couple of the people were like, well, we're not really fans of the movie, we just really like the toys. And that was just kind of an interesting, different way of looking at things for me, so it kind of surprised me, and so that's what I was mentioning to him.
Right. Well, I mean, I think it's neat because, part of our show is we have the dynamic where even though I'm a snob in every other aspect of my life, I'm actually, a pretty standard Star Wars fanboy, and I love all this stuff. And Steve is the real vintage snob who looks down on me for liking Clone Wars and all that junk. CJ, do you consider yourself to be sort of a good standard sort of vintage snob, or do you kind of dip into whatever's happening in the last 15 years?
Well, there's kind of two categories there. As far as collecting and the toys go, I'm pretty much just the vintage stuff, the new stuff. Yeah, it's cool to look at and nice to play with my nephew maybe, but you know, I really don't get into it that much. But on the flip side, the story side, you know, I pretty much read almost most of the novels that come out. Read a lot of the comic books that come out. You know, I've watched all the Clone Wars. So from that point of view, I think I'm kind of in line with what you're saying about the story versus the collecting, and I really do kind of align with that. The story thing is kind of most important to me, and if it weren't for the story that I loved, I wouldn't have any interest in the toys at all.
All
so
right, well, Steve, you're outnumbered, dude. I say we go get him, huh? Oh, this is great because last time we did this, everyone's like, "Yeah, who cares? Who cares?" Well, then I'm happy to talk to you because in the last month, it's not vintage news necessarily, but Disney seems to have really dropped the hammer on everything. And so as we've talked about, they canceled the 3D release, which I feel really bad for my son because he was in my wife's tummy during Revenge of the Sith when it came out. And he's been waiting since then to see the movie. We're always like, it's too violent. It's too violent. Wait till it comes out in 3D. Then you can see it for the first time. Like, canceled. It's like,
oh, man.
Yeah. And I don't, they just canceled the Clone Wars and they canceled that Detour show, which I didn't even know about because I was so busy at C6, but it actually looked like it was pretty funny. I don't know. Do you guys get the feeling that they're just trying to like kill the fanboy?
I think it's more that they want to just concentrate and put all the focus on episode 7. I don't know what's going on there, but my sense is that they just feel like that's the big thing, is that they really want this to be built around the new movies and not a lot of the ancillary other things.
I find it interesting. I think that it seems like a time where perhaps the more crusty vintage I Hate Jar Jar folks may be happier, and then the rest of us who've been sort of following along may lose out a bit.
I think that Detours was going to have a fair amount of vintage feel to it. There was a lot of nods to the vintage in some of the scenes that I saw. I just think that they're just trying to put their own stamp on things, and all the old things as far as the Clone Wars and different things like this, even though they were great and will make them money, it wasn't a Disney-led event, and it wasn't being distributed through Disney Channel and different things like that. So let's pass on this. Let's start doing our own thing. Let's turn the animation department into something that we can control.
See where they go with it. But I can already tell that Steve is suffering over there with all this expanded universe talk. Are you doing okay, man? Are you about to throw down the microphone?
No, I'm good.
All right, do you want to lead us into our next topic of discussion? This sort of, it's going to lead into we've been having a lot of moral quandaries lately. We had one last month with Chris Georgoulias about folding up box flats and whether or not that's morally acceptable. But here's a different one, Steve. So what happened with this auction recently?
Yeah, so this is news to me. I guess there was a supposed prototype Anakin Skywalker that was on a cut card for 88, I believe, that sold on eBay for about $800. It has that dark charcoal colored cape, but it was sold by the infamous Pablo Artezi. So that brings up this whole issue of this guy has a past. Do you factor that in? What's your take on it?
Yeah, and I think. 2, he's also dead, so that's another thing.
Oh, right, that's the other thing.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember CJ? When did he die? It was like a year ago, 2 years ago?
Yeah, I don't recall exactly. I remember hearing about it.
Yeah.
It was a year or 2 ago.
Yeah, he's still alive, but he's also dead.
Oh, I hadn't heard that part.
Oh no, he's definitely alive. He just said that he was dead to everybody, and then his sister winds up selling his stuff. But yeah, this is a great thing because he says that he got it from this belonged to my brother collection. So he's saying that it's his brother because he's technically dead. But yeah, so first of all,
what was the whole reason for pretending to be dead? Was there some angle on that?
Yeah, I think it was just to escape scrutiny, right? Because he I've had a hard time actually figuring out exactly what he did. I don't know if either of you know, if any of you know particularly. I know that he created the PPL bootlegs, right? Is that right, Duncan? Is that to your memory?
Yes, that's one of the many things. He is also famous for selling, a lot of fake things that have been carded that really weren't carded, and not sending stuff out to people. And interestingly, he's like the third person I've known who has died and not died, and had a wife or some other person come back to help clear out their stuff, but they just they take a lot of money from collectors and then they just disappear.
We talked about one who died and did not die, and then he sent me an email and I had to apologize. Well, his wife sent me an email. But I'm not going to get into that again because I actually felt bad, even though I had no reason to feel bad. So Argentina may have provided a pope, but it also provided one of the greatest scandals in Star Wars collecting. You see that, Steve? See how I brought it to current issues?
Nice job.
So what was crazy was, everyone doubted whether this was real. And then Bill McBride, the Vader collector, confirmed that he had sold one of these to Pablo. So it's probably real. And then I guess the question is, CJ, is it moral to buy from a known scammer? What's your position?
Well, my first position would be, caveat emptor, buyer beware, and you're really asking for trouble to do that.
Right.
But in the end, you know what? If you think you're going to get it and you think the price was good, and I don't have any problems with that. I mean, quite frankly, if it is real, better in true collector's hands than in a scam artist's hands. So better to get it out of there and get it back into the, trusted community. So.
All right, and Duncan, do you agree with that? That it's perfectly fine to fund Pablo's or Pablo's brother's or wife or whoever's life by buying this figure?
Well, the problem is, beyond that, is that just because they own a legitimate piece doesn't mean that that's the piece that you're going to get when you buy that quote-unquote same piece from them.
True.
So that's always the potential problem, is that it's known that they've got it, and then 2 or 3 other people end up with that same thing from this dealer.
Right, that's true. So it is still very risky, nonetheless. But I mean, if it was a piece you would want, you just would stay away from it then, Duncan?
It would really depend. I mean, I think the buyer beware is the definite main piece to this. There's always going to be somebody out there that will be willing to pay on the chance that this really may be the prototype that it says it is. And if you've got this, $800 deal out of it, then you think, wow, I'm ahead of the game. So there's going to be people that will be willing to pay for that. I would say, I would not be comfortable buying something that's that rare or significant from a known scammer. If they had something that was, a not rare poster or, socks or something like that I needed for my collection that's not really funding them, I would go for it.
Right.
Yeah, but you got to watch out for those fake socks. I mean, that's a big market.
It's true.
It's the bane of my existence.
Counterfeit socks. Someone should actually just go to the effort of doing that just to see if they could sell it to Duncan.
The sad part is they probably could.
Yeah, they probably could.
Now, I have had instances where I bought things not where I was worried that something was fake, but I wasn't 100% sure of that what I was getting was what I thought it was. And the one instance I can remember is a carded double telescoping Ben Kenobi that I got from this guy who claimed that his father he was an executive at General Mills, and that the General Mills executives got a box set of the 12 backs in a special box, and he said this box had like a stamped Star Wars logo on it. And this story always fascinates me because I've never obviously seen this thing and don't even know if it's real or exists. But so he said they got it in this box, had a special box with a logo, and it was some kind of nice box that all the carded figures were in. And he had 4 of them still, and maybe it was only the 4 that was in the box, or maybe it was the first 12. I can't recall. But so he had 4 of them, and I started thinking about this. Man, those must have been early. So I want to kind of quiz this guy. Can you look at this thing? Can you tell me what the saber looks like? And he sent me some really poor pictures. This was probably 98 or 99, so early days of internet and digital photography.
Right.
At best, and so I was like, well, why don't I'll go ahead and buy the Ben and the Vader off of you. And I was like, well, I'm just crossing my fingers, and it was. I probably would have. I'm sorry, it wasn't a Ben and a Vader. It was a Luke and a Ben. So I was like, well, I'll go ahead and buy them, and I probably paid quite a bit more than what the carded figures would have been worth at the time. So I was a little bit out on a limb. I'm not sure if these are, but I'm going to take a risk here. And when I got them, the Ben was not, but sure enough, the Luke was a double telescoping on card.
Huh.
So I made out okay on that deal, but it was one of those risky things where you put it out there, and I wasn't sure what I was getting or not. So,
well, I've never heard about that. So it was a set for executives, he claimed.
That's what he said. He said, yeah, his dad, General Mills, and all the executives got a set in a box that had some kind of Kenner Star Wars logo on the box, and I kept back. You have the box. I was like, I so wanted to see what the box was.
Yeah, no kidding.
No, he's like, I don't think we have it. I was like, go look for the box. I was like, I'll give you a lot for the box. So that's one of those mystery stories. Is like, I don't have any reason to doubt this guy. He was just some guy that emailed me out of the blue, and clearly a carded DT Luke would have been very, very early in the production line.
Right.
So it's likely that story is true.
Wow. Now, Duncan, have you ever heard of this box, Duncan?
I have not. I'm not familiar with it at all.
Wow. Hey, Steve, we're breaking more news here, right?
Hey, that's good.
Well, I mean, last episode we broke news. 2 episodes we broke news about the early bird kit. So now we're moving up to the first 12.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That'd be so cool to imagine. I mean, now when they do the corporate gifts, they're all made in China and they're super fancy. But wow, I wonder if any of those would ever surface and what they would be worth if they came up. I mean, even just the empty box, right?
Yeah, I mean, if it was indeed printed with some kind of logo or something, that would be a pretty special thing, I think.
Yeah.
I would guess that probably none of them exist anymore, but who knows?
Who knows? Well, I guess if you live out near Maple Plains, Minnesota, is that right? Is that Steve? That's their headquarters, right? Or Young America, or is that? I'm getting them all mixed up. I sent you guys a link, and I've been in contact with Dallas, he started this site, and he's out of Canada, and it's just called Vintage Kenner Star Wars Toys. I don't know. What do you think of this, Duncan? Of the way he has it laid out here?
Yeah, it looks really nice. It's the first time I had seen it. I had not seen it until you sent me the link. But looking through it, it's just really enjoyable. It's very easy to see and read and things like that. To your larger question, I think that there's kind of an establishment within the community, I guess, of where the sites are and, where you go for this kind of information or that kind of pictures or this and that. And so these other ones that kind of spring up, it takes a little while for them to get kind of into the consciousness of the collectors, I guess.
Yeah, that seems to make sense. And yeah, I mean, I think what I like about this is I just get the sense that most of what he does is just kind of play with his toys and take pictures, which is pretty admirable because he has the whole thing here on Slave One, and like he has the whole interaction between Lobot and the guards and that and everything.
I do like some of the newer sites. There's some interesting new things. I've always kind of enjoyed the sort of cartoon with action figures, comic strip with the action figures kind of thing. We really started with the, I don't know if you guys recall the POF2 TOO website. I forget who did that, but that was like the first time I'd seen that, and that website was just hilarious. So it was right around the time when the new figures were coming out, and so
yeah.
And then there was another one I remember later on that was, and I don't know if this one's still around, probably not, but where the guy, he started a website that was pretending like it was 1997 and moving through time. So that, he was trying to post the news of Star Wars toys as if it were 30 years ago. So we'd have December 1978 post, and the new figures came out today. I went to the store and I found, whatever, Boba Fett on the shelves, and it's so cool, and here's a picture of him. And so I thought that was an interesting take on things, but I don't know how long that lasts. I don't think it lasted very long.
Wow. Well, if anyone knows, thevintagepod at gmail.com, let us know. We have a lot of know-it-alls out there, and that sounds really funny and really cool, because I have to, you always think about that with the internet. My example is always, Batman 89. The Joker killed Bruce Wayne's parents. Fail. Like there's no way that would have cut it. Back if it was made now. But yeah, I also think that for the hobby in general, these kinds of sites, I don't know, they have a similar kind of vibe as, whenever I read old archive posts, back in the Marble days, when it was all the Marble background and stuff. And like there's a certain kind of, I don't know, vitality and sort of youth in collecting. And as I get older and older and I get more and more curmudgeonly, it's cool because I sort of see that sort of spark of early collecting, and it's great that for our hobby, these sites can pop up and, be like the young bucks going out there and getting all super excited, and we can kind of sit back and not update.
That's true. I mean, Web 2.0, that's what it's all about. And it's great. Dallas even, he gives us a nice plug on there too, saying that the show was a big deal for him once he started collecting again. So it just shows that it's still alive and kicking, which is great.
Well, yeah, I don't know if you know that, Duncan, but my original pitch to Gus, I said, I used that terminology. I said the archive needs a Web 2.0 presence. I felt a little silly saying that, but
it's good marketing speak, though, so that's good.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really like about this, and it kind of hits on what you were saying, is that it's, how often do you see somebody taking that many pictures of like a Slave One and the box and all the different angles of the ship and things like this? We get kind of a little jaded might be the right word there, just that we've moved to, now we're looking at chromolins, and now we're looking at, hard copies or this unproduced item and things like this. So we kind of forget about some of just the basic fun of the original toys.
Yeah, that's right there. And what would probably help, Steve, is if we actually said the URL.
Yeah, I was actually just about to say that.
Why don't you say it, Steve, there with your dulcet tones?
It's vintagekennerstarwars.blogspot.ca for good old Canada.
Yeah, so we are very, very appreciative of these kinds of sites. And if you have sites like this, send us an email, because as many of these as there are, the better. Like when Brad Portnoy came out with his Chewbacca site, even though he's supposed to be my competition in the Chewbacca site having world, it's all just great. And so yeah, that kind of actually segues into the next sort of phenomena. And CJ, I know you used to be really involved with the Ohio Star Wars Collectors Club. Is that right?
Yeah, I actually started that group, so I guess I'd call that pretty involved.
It was funny. I wasn't trying to do that cool thing where you understate things because you actually know the truth. I didn't actually know.
Your trademark is stupidity.
I thought it was. Well, who did I think it was? I knew you were there in the beginning. I didn't know you actually. So you actually started Oswalk?
Yeah, it was me and a friend of mine by the name of Scott Cole, who was only into Star Wars collecting for a year or two, and we actually he's the friend of mine that got me into it originally, because I had just gotten out of college, and actually I think it was my last year of college maybe, and he's like, oh, I collect these Star Wars toys. I'm like, well, that's kind of cool. I love those movies, and I have all those toys at home, and that kind of sparked it. And then I found out about Gus's Seattle Club, which was already in existence back then. This was probably 95, I think. And I was like, Scott, let's try and start a club. So we're like, okay, let's just do it. So we literally just printed up some flyers. This was really like probably pre-internet almost. Nobody was really online at that point. We printed up a bunch of flyers. We went to a local comic/toy show, put them on the flyer table there. We went to 3 or 4 comic shops around town, asked them to put them on their bulletin boards and put flyers out at their checkout area. And we were like, we have no clue what's going to happen this first day. And reserved the clubhouse at the apartment complex I was living in, and It's like, okay, well, we'll bring the Star Wars movie in, and if nobody shows up, we'll just watch the film. It'll be fun. And like 20 people showed up. We were floored, couldn't believe it. So the very first time, and then from there we started to expand out and had a couple people that found out about it come driving up from Columbus. One of them was John Wooten, another girl that Duncan might remember by the name of Mary Rathke, and they would drive up from Columbus for our meetings. I'm like, why don't you guys start your own meetings? So it kind of then expanded into, a large group, and obviously Cincinnati is the obvious place to also have meetings. So after like 2 years, I think it was pretty much a statewide club, and they actually count their birthday 2 years after I do, because I count it when I started it, and they count it when the official website for the state launched. So,
well, I think we'll go with yours, CJ. That's awesome. Yeah, I had no idea, but I think it's cool because much like that similar kind of sort of energy that comes about when you see these blogs and stuff, like it seems like every month, Steve, right? There's a new collector club that starts, right?
Yeah.
And I've been in contact with he goes by Big Mac on the forums, and my family, I have family lives in West Virginia, and so they're starting a West Virginia collecting club, which I just think is great because sort of the we had Steve still has the California collecting club, but that's kind of gilding the lily. There's lots of good stuff to do in California. I mean, there's lots of good stuff to do in West Virginia, but it's not California. So anyways, he wanted us to promote that. So in the off chance you listen to this show, and you are an Appalachian gentleman or gentlewoman, they're going to be meeting at the Tri-City Con in Huntington on April 6th.
Nice.
And that's pretty fun. We've been trying to start the Empire State Star Wars Club, Steve.
Right. I mean, how's that going?
It's going well. We need somebody to do something. That's our main problem. We need sort of a go-getter like CJ or like you with starting the blog for the California Club. So we're going to actually be meeting in May. So that'll be more of a meeting. They'll be meeting here and seeing the museum, going to the Toy Hall of Fame.
Oh, cool.
I look at what I did with that thing, and it is so minor compared to what the people that came after me did with it. It makes me so proud to see what those guys have done, and they run charity auctions and do all this great stuff, and they keep the whole thing alive. And I think it's still probably one of the biggest membership clubs in the country. And I haven't been involved as the founder for almost a decade now. Right. And it's going stronger and doing more than I ever imagined for it. So, just kudos to all those guys that work hard to run that club. It's fantastic to know that they carried something I started forward and really just made it much better than I probably ever could have.
Now, you hear that, Steve? So he started it just like I started the California Club.
Yep.
He left, so I passed the torch on to you.
Yep.
So we're waiting for the charity auctions. We're waiting for the hundreds of members. We're waiting for all that stuff. Now how about you, Duncan? You ever go for the collector club stuff?
Well, even though Kansas City is in the Midwest, it's really a desert around here. There's no real collector clubs out here. There's, a few collectors, but nothing that's ever really been organized. So, maybe someday somebody will put something together around here, but there's a couple of forums, but not anything that's like really get together kind of thing.
Well, there you go. So if you're out there and you're in the Midwest, anywhere near Missouri, is that how you pronounce it? Or Kansas, you could start a club and, watch tapes of the 1985 World Series, right? I think it's really cool just to see all these clubs show up, because you talk about the desert. I mean, they're starting clubs out in Wyoming and stuff like that. And of course, clubs can mean just 3 people going to Denny's. But it's still just
that's often what the California Club is.
Exactly. But it's still just the idea of getting together and talking toys. But speaking of getting together, but nowhere near, Steve, you have some news from across the pond. We'll get into more of the sort of news section away from the discussion section.
Yeah, so there's another Farthest From Star Wars show in the UK coming up, March 24th. It's just in a couple days at the Fordingbridge Town Hall, which sounds like a good time. But I know, Duncan, you went to I think the last Farthest From, and it seems like you and Gus had a pretty good time there. What was that like?
Oh, it was great. It's a smaller show. David Tree is the guy that puts it on. He's the one that did the Palatoy exhibition for those of you that were at Celebration Europe. And it's a fun vintage show. There's just a ton of vintage there. I mean, there's more vintage per capita than probably, any show that I've been to. There's just so many good Palatoy things that I saw there, and made a few purchases myself, but it was a really good time.
And then it's pretty exciting. I don't know if you guys are into the Gentle Giant stuff. So I love these things. I don't know how you feel about them, CJ, but you hear they're going to be coming out with a Han-Hoth.
Yeah, I'll probably have to pick that one up. There's not too much modern stuff I get even for that collectible run, but that one I think is those figures are pretty nifty, and they harken so much back to the vintage that I'll probably have to pick one up.
Yeah, I gotta say I got one. It's pretty funny. I got it as a really good deal because I was being filmed for the Toy Hunter show, and so I think Jordan was trying to sort of like, I mean, he'll cut a deal from time to time, but I think he was trying to seem like super like, hey man, let me cut another $10 off that for you. So I wound up getting it cheaper. I think partially because I was on camera. But yeah, I think it's really exciting. And one of my favorite things is the way they at least have nods to vintage stuff. The Blue Snaggletooth is okay, but the fact that they recognize the Gamorrean Guard for POTF, I mean, that's really specific. So my question is, do you think they're going to go with a molded leg and a painted leg Han-Hoth? What do you think, CJ?
Oh, I have no clue. I don't know that it really matters that much.
Yeah, and that's we're gonna have a couple more.
Good segue though.
We ain't let them folks change our vocabulary. Change our vocabulary.
Kershaw, hard copy, Sapporo, Frosty, MIB, MOJ, CMYKUD. It's vintage.
This month's word is molded leg, Han-Hoth. That's molded leg.
Yes, thank you, because that's going to be a kind of debate. Okay, so I don't fully understand. There's a lot of things I don't understand, Steve. But one of the things I don't understand is what exactly is a molded Han-Hoth legs. Does anybody know exactly what it is?
Yeah, I can help there.
Okay.
Because I don't know if you knew this either, but I used to work in the toy industry for about 10 or 15 years, way back in my early career.
Okay.
So this is probably one of the reasons these kind of variation things really mean nothing to me, because I have a good understanding of the production process and how all that works. Okay. And I know why these things are that way and how meaningless it is that they are that way. So having this sort of that personal insight into the process, because I was in the industry, probably shades me a little bit to that. But so as I understand it, the difference basically is, you have a figure and there's obviously different colors on the figure, but when you're actually making the parts, the individual pieces, say a leg or an arm or a torso, when you mold that part, you can only mold it in one color. You can't actually mold a leg in two different colors, at least not easily and cheaply and for mass production. So the difference would be the leg is two colors on, say there's a blue and a brown on the leg. So you could either mold the leg in brown and put the paint on that's blue, or you can mold the leg in blue and put paint on that's brown. So you could go either way with this, depending on, what might be the cheapest paint color that week, or what dye at this vendor matches better. So there's a number of reasons you could go either way, but in the end, the figure looks very similar. But if you do, look at them real close side by side, you would be able to tell the difference.
Okay, so that's what it is then. The molded legs were molded tanly. That's not a word. So you've had what, hundreds of Han-Hoths in your life, right? CJ?
I wouldn't say hundreds. I never really had that many loose figures. I've got, I've had maybe only a dozen probably loose figures ever really go through my hands. So,
Okay.
I mean, once you have one loose figure, I mean, why do I need 100, right? So I'm not making a Han-Hoth diorama army, although that's a good idea.
Well, I mean, you're talking to someone who has 400 loose Chewbacca's 6 feet from me, but well, I give them to every kid who comes to the house and doesn't touch the museum, so I'm down to probably
nice.
about 350. Yeah, you would not believe how many Star Wars fans or how many vintage Star Wars fans I've made, because they love it. They're like, "Wait, you're gonna give me a toy?" And then they go home with it, and yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's neat. Although there's now Brad Portnoy is building up his own Chewbacca army, and he's trying to outdo me. So my generosity will be my downfall. So have you noticed any, like, are the tan Hoths usually on certain carded figures and molded?
I never even noticed that until people started getting into the variations, whatever it was 10 years ago or so. And I, quite honestly, because I'm a bit jaded to it, because I understand why it happens, I just never meant anything to me. So I never really looked, quite frankly. So.
All right. Well, maybe someone can email us then, thevintagepod@gmail.com, because maybe they only did the molded thing in, I don't know, Taiwan or something, or only on Jedi figures, or only. Yeah.
I would say that it's probably likely, although you can never know for sure, that a certain combination would probably have come from one factory, and the other combination would probably have come from another factory. Now, it's also possible that, one factory, was running them one way, and all of a sudden, we can't get brown dye for the plastic anymore, so we got to switch the blue dye and start painting the brown, and it could have switched midway, but it's probably more likely that it was a factory difference. And so you're probably likely to see, one's from Taiwan with this one, and one's from China with that one, or whatever. But, I wouldn't know for sure without trying to survey a whole bunch of carded figures, but that would be my guess.
Right. And you're not going to do that, stupid variations.
I would be better suited to actually update my website once, before doing that.
Awesome. Well, part of the reason, too, it's fun to have you guys on is, I think starting at C5, I was asked to be an MC at the collector panels. And I always look up to Duncan and CJ as the slickest and the most professional of the MCs at the collector panels. So let's talk about collector panels, Steve.
Yeah, let's do it.
Been pretty big news about what will be given out at Celebration Europe 2. So they're going to be skipping over Empire, skipping over Return of the Jedi, skipping over Power of the Force, and going to what, Steve?
Tri-Logo.
Yeah, going to Tri-Logo. Yeah. Now, Duncan, I know that you are often pretty involved in this. Were you involved in this in any way?
Yes, similar to the Star Wars ones, I had a little bit of input, but it was mostly just listening to them talk about what it was that they were, which way they wanted to go, and should we go with Empire, should we go with Power of the Force. Tri-Logo to me always seemed like the most logical one, and then I like the fact that they were able to pick the last 17 as the ones that would fit for that.
Yeah, again, it's so cool because it's, the opposite of the first ones, where there's, okay, maybe the Death Star droid is not necessarily an easy hit, but you got a fair number of characters here that are super obscure that I was thinking, they're never going to make this into a Star Tot, but it's like they did the most obvious and then the least obvious. So Steve, that must mean you're going to be getting your B-Wing pilot Star Tot, right?
Maybe someday. He's not in the last 17. I think
that's his uncle, the A-Wing pilot.
Yeah.
I've never asked you that, Steve. Why have you not ventured into A-Wing pilots?
Because I never had one as a kid. I guess that's just where it stands. I'm sure if it was the A-Wing pilot that I happened to think was Luke, I would have chosen that, but I just don't think it would have gone that way because he's wearing green. He's not wearing... Right. At least red is close to orange.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, these things are great, and I'm still hemming and hawing about whether or not I'm going to Celebration Europe. I imagine you're going, Duncan. CJ, are you heading over there?
I'm not sure yet. I hope to, but well, we just moved into a new house and we're doing a complete renovation on the whole floor, so it's a little bit crazy and hectic here.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try, but I'm not sure yet.
See, I would have to tack it on to a trip because I have to go to the National Library in Paris, and I have to do some research. So I have to figure out what ratio of doing research in the library to going to a Star Wars convention is the proper ratio.
So you can get in big trouble there. Just
I can't. I'm being all above board. I'm not trying to pull one over on anybody, but we're going to see. But definitely seeing those makes me. Although, Steve, there's one thing I don't like about the Tri-Logo tots. Do you know what that is?
What's that?
There's no French.
You're right.
Duncan, you were a fly on the wall. What's the deal there?
Well, it had to do with the way that they looked, and Gare des Etoiles, they just didn't want to go with that one, so they just wanted to keep it basically 2 words and something that was well, I mean, obviously the German one wasn't, so I guess that kind of throws that out, but they were picking which ones are the potential look the best kind of thing, and so most exotic, I guess. And so Italian and German is what ended up with. And it's kind of funny, too, because the Spanish contingent also had the same thing, was that, you remember that these were French and Spanish and not German and Italian.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, I don't mind the Spanish not being on there. But the French, I mean, come on, no, it's I say that in jest. I see the point. And also, I mean, you're getting so exotic with having characters like a man up there. But yeah, no, those are great. The thing I noticed about the original Star Tots is the sort of more creaturely they were, the cuter they were. I don't know. At least that's the kind of feeling I had. So I think these are going to be really deadly cute. And then Steve, you wanted to talk about the documentary that sort of surfaced recently?
Yeah, there was that. I see you get some French here. The Michel Parbot. Is that any?
Whoa,
my best
bien,
French.
Steve.
Yeah, see,
Excellent.
that's my best French accent. I think it's all downhill from there. But there was a great documentary that he, I guess, directed and produced that was about the making of Empire, and it got some good conversation going on the vintage forums. But I watched it finally, and there was just some things that cracked me up about it. First of all, Kirshner just seemed so dead set on it being this fairy tale thing, and talking about how it's only got a touch of salt and pepper of sci-fi jargon, and then right after that they start talking about all this crazy starship stuff, which just kind of refutes what he was saying. But I mean, and there's also great things from Mark Hamill. He has a whole bit about how he's really concerned that his stunts will turn out to be fakey. And then I think probably the thing that cracked me up the most was I just didn't realize that Gary Kurtz was really the Rick Oley of vintage.
Wow. Now you see, you're talking to 3 people who know and appreciate Rick Oley, so be careful what you say here, Steve.
I know. But I mean, I guess he's always got the running joke of being the Mr. Obvious. But describing the sets and stuff, Gary Kurtz just states clearly, this is the main ice hangar where the rebel forces store their aircraft and their spacecraft to hide from the Imperial forces. And he just sits there staring at the camera while all this stuff is going on. Or he just talks about the weather of the location, picking one that had to be desolate and icy. And he's sitting there just saying that with a blizzard going on behind him. It just cracked me up.
Now, Duncan, your famous picture on one of your books is you there in Norway.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that accurate? Was it icy, Duncan?
Yeah, we were there. It was a little more of springtime, and the glacier was still frozen over, and the lake was still frozen over, and it was very cold. So I can't imagine what it would be like, in winter. But they had in the hotel there. They had all these pictures of, for the past 100+ years of the winters there, and just interesting things like the train. It's right next to a train station, so you just get off of the train and you walk 20 feet, and you're at the hotel there in Finsa. And the train tracks, they have these locomotives that have just these giant drills on the front that go through all the snow, because the snow gets so high out there that these drills just will cut through, and so they had all that kind of thing that we could see there. I would say that Death Valley has some just fantastic, you're in Star Wars scenes, and it's close to a lot of people, so I highly recommend that one. The one that might surprise a lot of people is Guatemala and the Rebel Temple there.
Oh yeah.
You climb up this pyramid, and you're huffing and puffing as you're going up, and just basically looking at the steps in front of you because they're so steep. And then you get up to the top over the canopy of the jungle, you turn around, and it's Star Wars instantly.
Oh man,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's funny, that really, like, I want to go there. I want to do, like, it's so funny just because the entire time exactly what you're going to see, I imagine, and still I bet it's just as amazing. Like when I went to go see Michelangelo's David for the first time, I literally read an entire book just about the statue. And I'm like, oh, I'm just going to go see it and whatever. I've seen millions of pictures of it. And then you actually see it and you're like, oh my God, that is an amazing statue. Like it's still unbelievable. I don't know, Steve, did I go too far on that one?
No, I think that's in line.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That sounds like fun. But did you get a chance to see the documentary, CJ?
5 minutes of it, and I keep meaning to finish it up, but I haven't had a chance to get through the whole thing yet.
I don't know. They always seem like, especially in the ESB era, I get a real cokey feeling from those guys. Like, I know, like, they've said in interviews and stuff they were doing a fair amount of drugs, but it kind of ruins the magic a little bit for me. Like that shot of Harrison Ford smoking a cigarette in the Millennium Falcon. Like, I just...
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I like to kind of keep the mystery alive. And then, Steve, I don't even know why I put this Revenge of the Jedi video game there.
Yeah, what is this?
Oh, you know what? Someone's brought it up on the boards. I just thought it was pretty cool that there is a Revenge of the Jedi video game. Do you know about that, Duncan?
Yes, there's 2 of them, I believe. Maybe there's there's 2. And they were available both for they're from Parker Brothers. They're unreleased games. And there's the 2 silver boxes, which were for, like, I think the 2600, and then the gold boxes, which I think were for, like, the Sears equivalent of that, whatever, not ColecoVision. Was it? Okay. But the game itself has actually shown up at one point just as a prototype, and I don't remember what it sold for, but it was pretty big money because there's a huge collection base of old Atari collectors out there that will pay just crazy money for mint in box games and prototypes, and not that we have any relations with that or understand that at all.
Yeah, well, I guess I probably put it on there, Steve, because at some point, maybe we'll put the call out. Do you guys know of any sort of video game collectors in the vintage community? Okay, I'll take that silence as a no. I would be interested to see.
Not off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't either.
Some people that are enjoy them or whatever, but I don't know anybody that collects them actively.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll put that out there then, thevintagepod@gmail.com, because I'd like to sort of find out about, if there's anyone out there who has a really good collection, from the arcades all the way through I think we've talked about that, Steve, that the way I got back into Star Wars was really Super Star Wars, that video game.
Right. Yeah. Those are great games.
Yeah, you could just blow the hell out of all those Jawas. You kill so many Jawas.
The firing rate on those guns, man. Yeah. You could just
and then also, I was doing some prep for the show too. I don't know, just every once in a while, things I never thought of sort of pop up again. And then because we're doing Han-Hoth, this is going to be great because I imagine this is going to be another thing CJ is going to think is not interesting or we're talking about. But
you're making me sound like a vintage snob now.
Oh, I know. We'll get back to talking about
maybe a
Star
little
Wars
bit.
Legacy.
Maybe I'll admit it a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. But I had never thought about Star Wars figures with a lean. Had you, Steve?
I noticed it, but
Really?
and I figured that. I had a feeling that like Luke Hoth and the Black Bespin Guard might have been made by the same guy because they had the same kind of style. But I mean, I hadn't thought about it in this depth. I guess I'd say.
Yeah, well, I mean, on this thread, Chris Georgoulias says that he met the sculptor and that it was intentional, and that he was kind of a rebel for doing it, and he was
Right.
trying to make it seem, a little more dynamic,
A little more
and
natural.
a little more natural. So, Duncan, am I just an idiot for never having noticed this?
I remembered them as a kid that there were some that you would have to stand slightly different in order to get them to stand up, but I had never really paid any serious attention to that. So this was the first time that I had really thought about this, particularly as an adult.
Yeah, I think it's awesome, to give the sense, speaking of Michelangelo, that these sculptors had their own sort of stamp on it. And then so CJ, as far as you know, wait, is Han-Hoth one of the gangster leaners or not?
I think he's used as the comparison that he's.
Oh,
Wait.
he's not. Okay.
I'm not sure, honestly.
Okay. But I mean, I guess that's not that you wouldn't be a snob about that, CJ, because that's an actual artistic choice.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, and then Chris also says that you can see his daughter's name in the Dagobah playset.
Yeah, I was with him there when we went to see that sculptor, and he showed us several different things, and one of them was the name in the Dagobah playset. I think it's Emily, if I recall right.
Right. Yeah, that's what he said.
And the other one is an interesting one is in. Shoot, I'm trying to remember what piece it was now.
The tail of the tauntaun. That's what he says.
Yeah, there's one there. No, there's one that's like it's a section of the toy that looks kind of like has like a geometric pattern to it, and the guy's name is in there, and it's kind of in a negative space. His name is in the negative space. You don't really notice it right away unless you're really looking for it, sort of in the negative space. I can't remember what it was, which toy that was though, that it was on. I want to say that. I don't think it was the Chewbacca bandolier, but maybe it was like one of the cases or something. Chris would remember, but yeah. So that guy put his name in, was always putting his name in stuff, and the funny thing is that they started, some of the higher ups caught wind that they were doing this, and came down and put the clamps down on that, and said, no, you will not put your name in any of your sculpts anymore. And then that's the one where after that he did this one in this other toy where it was like it was in the negative space of this geometric shapes, and so it was really hard to see, but he sort of was bucking the system and going, you won't tell me I won't put my name in here. So
that's awesome. I love that kind of stuff. Like there's a famous portraitist, Al Hirschfeld, I think is his name, and he puts his daughter's name, and there's the John Alvin poster for Blade Runner, right? Did I just out geeky everybody? I didn't mean to. Right? Because John Alvin, the great Star Wars artist too, he put his name in the light. But yeah, that stuff is really cool. But you know what, Steve? I think it's now officially time to get to the initial reason we wanted to have these guys on there. We were thinking, how fun would it be to have CJ talk about a Hoth piece, Han-Hoth piece, and then as a nugget, and then Duncan, the king of the space freaks. That's what we call you, Duncan. I hope you don't mind that name.
No, I like it. That's cool. There was another King Duncan. He didn't end up so well, but hopefully this one will be a little bit better.
Well, I mean, your legion is space freaks. So, anyways, we'll have you with the unloved item, and just to sort of talk to you guys through it, and then it just sort of tumbled into the space chess roundtable talk, because why not? So I think what I'll do now is I will hit stop on the recorder. Well, not hit stop on the recorder, but we'll click ahead to the next section, and we'll come back and we'll get CJ's nugget from the archive.
'Tis a nugget from the archive. 'Tis a nugget.
Oh my God, they're gorgeous.
From the archive.
Oh my God, they're gorgeous.
All right, so before we get to the nugget, I haven't actually talked about the card back, and I like to talk about card backs because I love to look at card backs. Does it bug you, CJ? Does it bug you they didn't pick a photo that was in focus?
I never even noticed that, to tell you the honest truth.
Really?
Really? So now I'm gonna have to go look.
Oh no! Don't look now because it'll drive you crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
I've never.
I
Oh,
love the figure.
you mean for the front of the card is a little out of focus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You were saying card backs, and I was thinking you meant the little photo on the back.
Oh no.
So
Now that would be really upsetting.
yeah, I don't know. It's okay.
I mean, part of me hates it, and part of me loves it because that was the best possible photo Kenner could get. The most important movie up until that point that had probably ever been released. And like the best they could do is this kind of blurry, shot that doesn't quite make sense. You're not really clear what he's doing.
Yeah, certainly not the prettiest of all the carded figures, that's for sure.
But it's funny because the figure itself is one of the coolest. I mean, only Harrison Ford could rock an ascot so well. I guess it's not ascot. Anyways, you see what I do? I say I'm going to let you talk, and then I start talking. So you picked out a nugget that is from the archive, from your collection. What is it, CJ?
So the one I picked out was a coin soft copy of Han-Hoth, obviously.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about coins from time to time. What phase of production is the soft copy?
So it's kind of in the middle of the process. So they start with a sculpt, and then they go to a hard copy, and then a soft copy, and then a tooling master, and then a die, and then the coin.
So then a soft copy is floppy, right?
Yeah, you can bend them. You can bend them literally so that the two edges fold over and touch each other. That's how flexible they are.
Wow. And this is, you see it up there too, Steve, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a really nice one too. They're not, sometimes, I don't know, like, they get a little bit too busy, but this is just cool. It's just it's
really clean.
Yeah, it's really clean, and it actually kind of looks almost like hair as opposed to his, looks like maybe he's been hanging out with Chewie too much, It's got, well, you know what it looks like, Duncan? What's that Japanese crazy poster with Luke who's got the crazy flying out hair? You know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, the one from Coca-Cola from A New Hope. Yeah, where he's got the big perm and float. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I knew I could I knew I could figure out exactly what I meant. I think if you put these two next to each other, it's a pretty funny picture of kind of flowing hair. So what is it that you want to tell us about this, Chris? Because you said you had a good story. So we'll kind of merge together vocab, story time, and a nugget.
Ticolo Carbon. Ticolo Carbon story time.
Sure. Well, the interesting thing about this piece is it was one of the first soft copies to ever turn up. So what had happened was I get this email from this lady in Columbus. This was probably, I think it was 96. She says, hey, my ex-husband used to work for Kenner. I have she didn't really know what even to call them. She knew that they had something to do with coins. She said, I have these coin things. Would you be interested in them? I'm like, sure. What are they? Can you tell me more about them? And again, this was like practically pre-internet. I mean, I was on email a lot, but this was like, the RASSCV days, RASCV days, the news groups. So actually what she did to show me what it was is she sent me a fax of one of them. So I get this thing and it's full size. So these things are a little bit bigger than 8.5 wide. So it was chopped off on both sides. But the first fax she sent me, I wish I still had this fax. I might somewhere, but was I believe it was the Emperor's Royal Guard. So I get this fax, and I'm like, okay, there's an Emperor's Royal Guard. It's clearly the coin. It's 9 inches in diameter, and at the time, some sculpts had been found, and maybe even some tooling masters. A couple of them had come out, but this was before the big, major, huge find of all the tooling masters and hard copies of the coins. So, so I call her on the phone. I'm like, So tell me a little bit more about it. She says, oh yeah, it's like rubber. You can bend it. I'm like, and I'm talking to like Gus and Chris, and I'm going, you guys have any clue what this thing is? And they're like, I don't know. I've never heard of anything like that. So John Wooten at the time lived in Columbus. So I was like, told this lady, I'm like, let me come down and take a look at this stuff. So John works at, I think he still does work at Ohio State University. So we met her at like the Ohio State University library or something like that, some campus area, and got this little conference room that John signed us up for. And so she shows up there and pulls out this box, and it's like a stack of pancakes. And I sent you a photo of John Wooten holding that and me standing beside him there.
Yeah, that's a great picture. We're going to put it up on our show notes. This is a picture for the ages, because I don't think I've ever seen you without your little the soul patch. CJ,
yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen you without the soul patch.
So we got there and we're like, well, this is pretty fantastically cool, but it's nobody knew what it was. Nobody ever seen it. Nobody really knew at the time what the process was for making of the coins. So these were the very first things. We didn't even know what to call them. So I was like, well, we got these hard copies, and they're hard, and this is soft. So let's call them soft copies, for lack of a better term. So that phrase was coined, and what actually happened was we decided to help this lady out by holding a private auction for them. So I contacted a whole bunch of the collectors that were into that kind of thing. And I said, we're going to do this sort of silent auction, and here's the list of everything, and send in your bids, and we'll do an auction for a week, and I'll send her the money, and for doing that, she let me keep the Han-Hoth one for free, basically, for helping her out. That was sort of payment for helping her out. And so she had, I think it was about 20 of those soft copies.
Wow.
And some of the really good ones. Fett was in there for sure. I think Greedo, Imperial Dignitary, Luke Hoth, Lando, Bespin, trying to remember, Han-Hoth, obviously, a few other not as great ones. But so there were some really good ones. And I don't even know if I want to say how cheap those things went back in '96. Most of them were under $200. I'll put it that way.
Oh, man. Wow.
And so this lady also had the single known example of the coin album with the logo on it, which Gus now has.
Wow.
So she also had a gold 63rd, like a first shot hammerhead and a first shot land speeder, a couple other little things, But it was a pretty neat find, just because to see something, especially like now where we're at in the stage of this hobby, like new stuff hardly ever comes up. It's something completely new nobody's ever seen. But back then it was a little more common. But to have something of sort of that magnitude sort of surface and everybody's sort of like, wow, this is so awesome. So
wow, that is an awesome story, and you definitely. I hate to tell you, CJ, but it is your job to find those faxes, because
yes,
I would honestly, if you had a fax of a Chewbacca, I would pay $200 for the fax. You double your money.
I don't think that Chewbacca was in that group. I don't recall that it was.
Well, I'm just saying someone would spend $200 for the fax.
I think she only sent me one fax, and it was the Royal Guard. I'm pretty sure. So it's only that one. And if I have it, I know exactly where it would be, but I haven't looked in this one box for a little while. I don't think I still have that fax, but you never know. I could go check.
All right, well, we'll leave that to suspense for next month. But that's so cool. So and also I think I don't want to get angry emails. You have to call it the Ohio State University, right?
Oh yes, I suppose so.
I mean, I'm not trying to tell you. I know you started the Ohio Star Wars Collectors Club, but anyway, so just the idea that all of these were found in this little library. And it's cool, this picture, too. It's so evocative just to see, like, it looks like a college library, and you're there, and you're smiling, and that's where this term soft copy was born.
Yeah, and that was really the very first, discovery that I was involved in. So that was sort of whet my appetite for, like, going out there and digging this stuff up. And so, when when that's your first hit and it sort of happened by accident, you're like, oh my gosh, well, like this would be fun to keep doing this and keep having these kind of, treasure hunting adventures. So that was kind of my first find, and sort of started me down the path of really getting into the vintage prototypes. And the other thing I'll say is that find is pretty much why I collect Han-Hoth, because Han was always my favorite character. So at the time, the only thing I had gotten, I had wanted to get a little bit into prototypes, and I had purchased a Revenge of the Jedi Han-Hoth proof card. Mm-hmm. And that was really the only one I had. And then this find came up, and I'm like, oh, cool. I get if I'm going to keep one of these, I really want the Han Solo one. That's the one I wanted. So, and I'm like, hey, now I got a Han Solo soft copy, and I got a Han Solo Revenge of the Jedi proof card. And I'm like, why don't I just keep going down this path and just look for Han-Hoth stuff in the prototype field? And, just that's what I'll be looking for. If I have an option of getting a hard copy or another proof card or whatever it might be, I'll go for Han-Hoth stuff. So that sort of started that whole collection, was that soft copy, because it was like the second piece that suddenly made it a run. It was only a 2-piece run,
right? But
it was suddenly a run. So, yeah, and I recognized that and kept going with it.
That's not a bad run. And also, I think, looking at the archive entry, and we'll include a link to it, the way things happened, it's actually pretty significant, because if it weren't for the fact that you called them soft copies, and if it weren't for the fact that she weren't married, and that this wasn't her ex-husband, then they would have been called rubbers. Because, at least according to this article, that's what they were called in the industry. They were just called, so there would have been just a whole series of bad jokes, and, you got Han's rubber, and that would have been really annoying. So we owe you a debt of gratitude, CJ. Because soft copy is a lot cooler than calling them rubbers. Everyone still there?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes.
Oh, cool. Boy, Steve, it's going to be hard to do better than that, Steve. But I think that we can equal that, because ever since Duncan sent the pictures just a minute before we started recording, I have been dying to talk about this month's unloved item. So we will hit the drop and then talk to Duncan about Aqua Fun.
You don't hate, only the unloved hate. The unloved and the unnatural. The unloved and the unnatural.
So, Duncan, I asked you last month, do you have any cool vintage items? And to be honest, Duncan, I was afraid that you didn't read my email carefully and that you just were going to talk about some weird modern thing. Because I had so never heard of what you were talking about that I just had to kind of BS it and be like, oh, yeah, Aqua Fun. Sounds great. So what in the world is Aqua Fun?
All right, Aqua Fun is a company that out of Australia during the Return of the Jedi era that did a series of inflatables, plastic inflatables, swim aids, and things like this. Their parent company is kind of ironically named Stern's Playland, so it's kind of a juxtaposition there, I guess, of Stern but Playland, but it's Stern.
Right. So sit there, like, be on the play structure and the swings, but have your arms folded and frowning.
Exactly. So the ones that we have so far, there's R2-D2 floaters, which are the little inflatable arm things that you put on your upper arms to help give you the assurance that you're not going to drown. And these have R2-D2 on them, obviously, hence the name. And then the Ewok Bubble, which has some colored line art of 2 wickets and Paplu. And that's another piece that you would strap on to a child or something so that they would be able to have some more security while they were swimming. And then the third piece that I have is the speedboat on it.
Speedboat.
Exactly. So there was a Star Wars speedboat. All it is just a little inflatable kind of a raft thing that you could sit in and go around in. It's got Luke and the droids and the Millennium Falcon on it, Star Wars logo. But there's kind of a funny story behind it, or at least interesting as it relates to Gus and Duncan's comprehensive guide to Star Wars collectibles, available now at paizo.com or completistpublications.com. You'll notice there's only 2 items listed in there for the Aqua Fun, and that's the R2-D2 floaters and the Ewok bubble. Originally, we had the speedboat in there, a canoe, I think there was like a beach ball kind of thing as well. And what we really tried to do as we were putting the book together is we would try to get multiple confirmations of items, that we didn't just go with, okay, one person has seen this, or this was shown in one, publication or something like that. We really wanted to make sure that there were multiple sightings of it so that we didn't have something spurious in the book. And we just were on the fence with the speedboat. We even had, it was in the book originally, and we even had in the beginning, each of the chapters has a little bit of the history of that type of collectible, in this case, sporting goods, and what are the key things in the sporting good collecting. And so we made a little joke about you could recreate the famous speedboat scene from Return of the Jedi. And we just got a little bit of cold feet there at the end and decided, we really don't have any proof that this thing exists. So we killed that from the book. We took that little line out of the write-up. And the day that we went to press, I found this item on eBay and was actually able to confirm that it existed.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's going to take another hour and a half just to just stop talking about these things, because there's so many things about these to love. First thing is, Duncan, how often have you seen it where you see the Star Wars logo completely on its own and the complete Return of the Jedi logo? That's pretty rare, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the makeup of that, the design of it is very unusual in that there's not a lot of stuff that had just Star Wars logo by itself during the Jedi era. And then the fact that they also put the Jedi one there too, yeah.
And that's even on the speedboat itself as well. I mean, the
logo.
The
racetrack stripes too, yeah.
Yeah, it's got the double racetrack, which was abandoned, by Empire. And I mean, you have to be watching this enhanced. But there's the Falcon that's going in front of the Star Wars logo, and it's got a certain dynamism. And then there's just the whole idea too. First of all, the Ewok bubble. It's just kind of a great surrealist, word soup, like Ewok bubble. And it's like a backpack. Is that right, Duncan?
Yes, I think that's correct. It's just kind of an inflatable thing that you could strap, a harness almost that would give you some extra buoyancy. And so you could either strap it over your back or reach around and kind of grab it from the front.
And I also love that it says you can learn to swim with confidence.
That's right.
It's like, I don't think I'd be confident if I only could swim with an Ewok bubble. And then moreover, it's not like they only had Wicket, right? So there's 2 Wickets, and one you said Paplu. So they just took the Wicket and then they flipped him and minimized him. So like they seem to get randomly lazy with that. And then that makes you think of carded Wickets where they flip him every once in a while. Like, what is it about Wicket that makes him flippable? And why is he so fat? Isn't that a fat Wicket, Duncan, or is that a pretty common line art image?
That is the common line art, but he definitely looks a lot more portly in this thing, which is not exactly what you want to show for buoyancy.
No, exactly.
And the whole idea of R2-D2 in the first one, it's like, putting a big electronic thing in the water. That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, we saw how it worked out in Dagobah. And also, you could tell they were really scared of being sued, because all over these things, warning, not a life-saving device. Use at your own discretion. Not a life-saving device. Oh wow!
Yeah,
So
that looks like something that would have come out from the United States, recently. That it's not something that you would expect from the '80s back in Australia, or something that they would be that lawsuit averse.
right, and so that this is probably from Australia. You think?
Yes, it's definitely from Australia.
Okay.
And I don't know if you guys noticed, but there's a funny line in R2D2 one that says, let me bring it up here, swim trainer for children and adults.
Oh man.
Yes, I
man.
saw that. I thought that's hilarious.
Oh, I missed the end. I don't know if there's going to be an archive party at Celebration in Europe too, but there definitely will be one at Celebration 7. We need to have a pool party section. So figure out if you can just. I know it's hard to find a speedboat, but if we could possibly have a speedboat race in the pool after hours, I mean, that's just great. And it's not, and just for those of you who are listening to this without the enhanced images, it's just an inflatable raft. I don't
There's
even know
no engine. No engine.
no engine. I don't think there's any way to move.
You need
I
a
guess
paddle.
any speed is considered a speedboat, even if it's a slow speed.
That's true, yeah. And the Ewok bubble is not for adults as well. That's just for children. If you're over 10 years old, you cannot use the Ewok bubble.
No, you have to use the R2D2 arm blow-ups. I mean,
right.
That's obvious, right?
Oh wow!
It wouldn't be embarrassing enough that you're trying to learn how to swim as an adult or whatever, but you have to have these R2 floaties to give you confidence.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the use of the word confidence in all these that definitely struck me.
Yeah. Oh wow! Well, I want to say, Duncan, that anytime you find anything, you just feel like, hey, have they talked about this on the show? You just send us an email because it's always fun for us to try and find these things, and we never would have found this. So, just
Well, I always enjoy seeing what you guys come up with, because it's fun to see what you guys are going to find intriguing, or what things that I've taken for granted for a long time, and it's like, oh yeah, probably not everybody is aware of that, or something along those lines.
well, I tell you, these Hungarian pocket calendars, just
Yeah.
Steve, I didn't even tell you. Jason from the New York Club, he sent me a link, and I managed to get a Chewbacca Hungarian pocket calendar.
Oh wow! So you got an additional one to the Ewok Roadkill and Photobomb.
Yeah, well, actually, no,
Okay.
I think he just wound up with that one. But
Okay.
I mean, these things just pop up. Do you collect those as well, Duncan?
I do. It's fairly never ending.
Yeah, that's what it appears to be, that you could just go on and on. Hey, actually, I'll even ask you a question while you're on here. I wound up winning an auction it was from Hungary, and it was the similar quality of printing, which is to say, lack of quality of printing. But on the other side, it looked just like playing card back. It was just like blue and checkered. Well, what do you think that's about?
Well, that's interesting. So but the photo didn't have anything that would lead you to believe that it was a playing card?
No, not at all. It's just like different pictures from mostly Return of the Jedi. And then the other side looks like the back of a playing card deck.
It's probably from a bootleg memory game, or something along those lines, where you would have multiples of the same image, and you flip them over and try to remember where you saw the other, Falcon in the hangar, or Luke on the Tauntaun, or whatever.
All right. Well, hey, if I get enough of them, that'll be another game for the archive party.
$1 Flicks. Market Watch.
So what's cool, Steve, is that we have, a Han-Hoth collector from 1997, 96, 95, whatever, super old school focus collector. And I imagine...
Making me feel really old, guy.
I mean, this guy is so old.
The ancient collector.
I mean...
He's vintage himself.
I was trying to say that, with respect, but I realized that I might have thrown too many adjectives in there. What's that from Billy Madison? He's so old. I forget what it was. but I mean, if you had to think about what it would be like back in 1998, CJ, if you were trying to put together like a full run of carded Han-Hoths in reasonable condition, how much time and money do you think that would have cost?
Well, before the eBay day, it would have taken quite a bit of time because I did get started before that, and it was, I remember going to the toy shows and you just wait and go there and see what you find and hope you find what you're looking for. So, but money-wise, it would have been much cheaper than today. So, probably, maybe for Empire and Jedi figures, $20, $25. So
yeah, that's
things have changed.
Things have changed. So I thought it'd be fun to just kind of look at Brisbane Mike. Speaking of Australia, I have officially forgotten how you pronounce it again, so that's good. So he always goes and finds our figure of the month and just says sort of like a test as to if someone said, I want to be the next CJ Fawcett, because obviously, in your advanced age, you're clearly now. I want to be the next CJ Fawcett. How could you possibly do it? So we're not necessarily going to read all of these. But as far as like the 31 back, CJ, do you remember that being a big deal, trying to get his debut card, or is it just?
Even back then, the card backs, which one it was on, was really nobody really cared. It was more about the front, and a lot of people wanted the card without an offer on the front was almost more important than what was on the back. So it was all about getting offerless fronts, and for most of the figures that's pretty easy. I think the only one that's really super difficult is I think the Forlom ESB one is really hard without an offer, or maybe the debut back is really hard. I can't recall, but so yeah, looking at the card backs back then, it wasn't nearly quite as in depth. I mean, everybody was aware of 31 back, 48 back, and everything, but I don't think there was even that much really deep understanding of which card backs were maybe the rarer ones, and I don't think any of the Han-Hoth ones are really that rare anyway.
Right.
So according to the Kellerman book anyway, they're all pretty standard. So yeah, I didn't really look for that much. I was really just trying to get sort of an Empire, a Jedi, a Tri-Logo, and I wasn't even really that into getting one with every offer or anything like that. So
Right. Well, it seems as though the prices, Steve, looks like you can, if you're into the graded, you could get a 31 for around 280, ungraded 138. Seems like a pretty steep AFA tax there. But then 32 ungraded, yeah, it seems to be about the same. I don't think it's actually changed that much. I don't know how much you guys pay attention to that, but it doesn't seem like it's changed too much. People still mostly just want offerless or an offer. Although I do really like this one 32A. I don't know if you guys see that went for $80 because it has a sticker tear and then the X's on the back.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have a lot like that, Duncan, in your collection?
Not a lot in my collection. I have over the years, but of course the ones that I had as a kid, I would always, mark off the back, or mostly in the little catalogs that came with the play sets.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to me, that's like, I don't even know if I've even talked about that, but this card back, any of the ones with the little pictures before they went to the group photos, that's probably my number one memory of playing with the toys, is looking at the pictures on the back and seeing the crazy like the lights, and oh man, yeah, those are great. And then let's see, Steve, what if you we never tried to do this, have we? A Roundtable market watch? Is it completely failing? Is this terrible, Steve? Help me, Steve. Tell me it's good.
All right. We're gonna be all right.
All right, we're gonna be all right. So then, see, 41. Again, it's $100. This is cheaper than I thought it would be, to tell you the truth. I thought that pretty much that Han-Hoth would be kind of like Luke Bespin and just sort of in high demand.
Yeah, that's true. And you got a 47 that's 300. I mean that's jumping up a bit, but it's also graded. But then
we get to something interesting, CJ.
Yes.
Did you see this?
Yeah, that's been a grail of mine for a long time. I had a shot at one of them once in my whole collecting endeavors, and this was probably 8 years ago or so, and it ended up. It came from I think Jordan had one, and it came from a collection of one of the salesmen who had this, and it ended up, I don't know, I don't remember the story, maybe somebody outbid me with Jordan, or he promised it to somebody else first or something, but anyway, the only one I've ever seen, and I missed it. And this one,
all right, well, CJ, your call dropped out, but it happened for a reason, because we didn't actually say what the figure was that we were talking about.
oh, okay.
So I think that was our listeners who are sitting there going, damn it, why won't they say what they're talking about? And that mental energy jumped through space and time and into my computer. And Steve, am I going too far? Anyways, what we're talking about is an Empire Strikes Back, posh, whatever.
I always
Spanish,
called it POC. I don't know if
pocket.
that's right. I don't know if that's right, but I always called him POC.
Point is, it's a Spanish Empire Strikes Back, Han-Hoth, and it's got the beautiful sideways card. And again, we're just talking about the portrait photos, but this is a group photo that's unlike any other.
True that.
And it sold for $4,000. And is that about what you bid 8 years ago, CJ?
Well, I'm not sure if it went for 4, because if you notice in the eBay link, it says it was like a best offer or something. So who knows what that means?
Oh.
Maybe it went for less, maybe it went for more. But yeah, it was probably 7, 8, 10 years ago. There's only one shot I've ever had at this in my whole collecting endeavor of this figure with Han-Hoth, and I can't remember why exactly I missed out. I think it actually was. I found out a little bit too late, and it had already been sold, and it was something like, well, I got, this guy who says he might want it, and you're second on the list, and then he took it. I think it was something like that, but it is certainly a grail kind of piece of mine, but man, I don't think I'd ever go for it at that price. It was crazy high to me, especially considering there's a gigantic sticker sort of messing up the most beautiful thing about these figures, which is the horizontal back. So
no, that's tough, because the Cheery one came up a while ago, and I think it went for around $4,000 as well.
But I've only ever seen this figure twice. This one and the one other one that I missed.
Yeah. Well,
so it's crazy hard.
Yeah, that's pretty tough. Now, Duncan, do you like, when it comes to the crazy foreign variations and stuff, do you sort of try to get one of each example? Do you just stay away from them in general, or do you have like a crazy horde of them and you're not telling me?
Well, I tried to get, for my U.S. set, was basically each movie front didn't matter what the back was, and so each character and major variation on all of those, and then the tri-logos, and then foreign cards I like to get basically the same thing when possible. But for the Spanish set, I only have one of the Empire. I just have the Ugnaught.
Right.
Yeah, these are crazy hard to find.
Yeah, they are, and they're just beautiful. I love the L, El Imperio Contraataca, the way it's just, right in between the double racetrack. And yeah, no, that's a really nice piece, and I feel bad for you, CJ, that came up and you didn't wind up with it.
And at this point in time, I'll probably never wind up with one, because I don't know that I'd ever bite on that kind of a price. So
yeah, you'd probably have to trade a lot of faxes in order to get that. Yeah, too bad you didn't make that find now. You could have done it with a couple of trades. And then there's the tri-logo, which this is the first one in a while that didn't have an alternate photo for the tri-logo.
Right.
But that's pretty cool. And then a Chromalin, Power of the Force Chromalin came up as well. That's
pretty nice.
That's pretty nice. I imagine you've had one of those for a while, CJ?
I have a proof card. I don't have this one as a Chromalin.
Wow, this could have been a really expensive month for you.
I don't think I necessarily need both the proof card and the Chromalin, so I would have been okay passing on this one.
Oh,
so but I might have considered, if I had seen it, I might have considered upgrading, buying the Chromalin and selling off the proof card, because my proof card doesn't have a back.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's just a blank back. So, I would assume this one, I didn't look at the listing, but does this have a back on it?
No, I don't think so. But
No?
yeah,
Okay.
no, but even I don't know. Going for 3,000 seems actually fairly reasonable for an
That's
unproduced Power of the Force proof.
That's
I
not
mean,
too bad. I mean, I got mine probably over 10 years ago, and it wasn't much less than that. So,
Yeah.
considering some of the things, how they've skyrocketed in price, that's not too bad.
yeah. So there you go for the people that listen to the show, because we like to emphasize that you can do it cheaply. $2,000 for a Chromalin is cheap. So you see, it is possible.
Unproduced Power of the Force Chromalin, yeah, that's a pretty good price.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I jumped over a bunch of them because I think that's how it works the best. And what I also did is I don't know if you guys now you guys have both been collecting for longer than we have. Old collectors. But well, it's just so funny because with Steve, I get to always tease him for being too young, and now but I often refer to at least myself as a sort of Kellerman era vintage collector. What I mean by that is that when I sort of got into collecting vintage, it was super hardcore. It was right as the Kellerman came out, and I don't know. It seems to me like from talking to Ron that he sort of considers himself almost to be a concept to screen to collectible collector. You guys have a sort of similar feeling? Like, was that book the same kind of importance to you, Duncan?
Well, I was one of the few that actually stuck with Star Wars collecting my whole life. I didn't go away from it there in the late 80s. So I've always kind of considered myself a first-generation collector, which is probably why I'm still a completist. I think if I had gotten out of it and come back into it, I wouldn't be. But originally, everybody was completist, and they became too much stuff to keep up with. So there's
Right.
only a couple of us now.
Huh. And so yeah, well, how many completists are there?
Besides Steve and myself, I think that's, really pretty much it. I don't know of too many other people that say they go for everything.
Right. And I mean, the Onion headline, does that still bother you? They didn't ask you for a picture?
No, not at all.
No. Okay. 'Cause you've seen that one, Steve, right?
No, I haven't.
Oh, I don't know the exact text. This isn't a sore point for you, is it, Duncan?
It's not. You can talk about it.
Oh, okay. I think it was Star Wars collector now has one of all. And it's just a picture of a guy in front of a bunch of Star Wars toys. I don't even think there's a story. I think it's just a headline. But I remember thinking it was pretty funny. And then I immediately thought of Duncan and Sansweet. But yeah.
Well, it's funny, too, because, when you see people and talk about Star Wars, it's funny how many people had it all, quote unquote, until they come over and see the collection, and then they realize that they didn't really even come close to having it all.
Right, yeah. Yeah, no, it's when people walk, and see my collection, like, wow, you must have everything that ever was Chewbacca. I'm like, I don't even know if I have 10%. It's like, getting the Hungarian pocket card is a real step forward, but there's at least 5 other Hungarian pocket cards I don't have.
I think they've made 20 since we were started taping.
Yeah, exactly. Stop making them hungry. Well, I guess I bring it up because there was this auction of at Celebration 6. We talked to Jeff from Jeff's Collectible Empire a couple months ago, but he bought all of the Kellerman figures with the idea of having them authenticated as being from Kellerman, and then basically selling them and having it be sort of like a thing. What was your reaction to that, CJ?
I thought it was sort of a novelty kind of a thing, but I really didn't view it as something that should really make the value much different. I mean, there were some good figures in there just of their own right.
Right.
But I guess in some ways it's interesting to say, here, I have the one that's in the book. I mean, but I wouldn't think it would really garner that much of a premium
And I think if people thought they would be a premium, this probably wouldn't last because, that was just a collecting book that came out, and 15 years from now, is it really going to be that important that this was the figure that came from that book? I don't know. But then there was also wasn't there the Sansweet collection that did the same thing where he auctioned off all the figures from the book recently? And that was only one group, right?
I don't know. I missed.
So that's a similar kind of thing.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. Was they were a large portion of them were donated to the Rancho Obi-Wan, and they used those in the photography for the book. And then
the most
I
recent
think
book.
that's correct. Anyway, there was an auction where they had several thousand figures, and I believe those were some from that they used in photography. But it was definitely donated to Rancho Obi-Wan to raise money, and so they auctioned them off.
I see.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess when I was talking to Jeff, and to me, it really resonates as an idea. And I mean, I bought one of the figures primarily because the book did mean so much to me, and there is a kind of, it's like a weird double nostalgia because it's like you're nostalgic about the toys, but then I'm also nostalgic about the time when I would read Kellerman. I would switch between the archive and Kellerman and just sit there and just spend all day trying to learn about these toys. So there is something about that to me that has like a kind of resonance. But I'm interested to see, and we'll kind of think about it. Did it have an impact on the price? And I'm not sure it did. A Lando skiff went for $226, which is insanely high. But then it's AFA 85, so. And a Poplu AFA 85 for 220. So I guess that's the question we could put out there. Steve, could you go back in time and ask Pete the question if most Return of the Jedis that are 85 go for $225?
I wish I could.
Okay. Well, tune in next month. We'll see if we get the facts from CJ and that. But then there's some other items like there's a Clipper Biker Scout that went for 200, and that's just crazy that would go for less than a Paplu.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
And then some just went for Well, I like that he mentioned that the Bespin security guard white, and then he put in parentheses Asian.
Yes.
The whole point is it's not. No longer can we call him white. He must be called Asian from here on out.
It shows the impact that your show is having.
Yeah,
That's right.
Well, if we just convince people, it's right there. It's we had to celebrate Lucas's absolute bare minimum of diversity efforts, and having one of the guys kind of maybe Asian if you didn't really pay attention. And then there's a 20 back Death Star droid that went for 1,000, which I couldn't quite figure out why that one went for 1,000. I guess because it's a 20 back. Yeah, I guess that's it. So it seems as though most of these are going.
That just seems crazy to me, crazy high. But
yeah. Well, it's pretty hard, right, to put together the set of 20 backs.
Yeah. You got to remember, though, I come from the era where card backs were like, I don't care what card back it is, whatever it is, and like this idea that, and I understand, like I get it. It's like, okay, the 20 backs, a lot of them are pretty rare and legitimately rare, not just like sort of some fabricated, manufactured rarity, but man, that seems like a lot. $1,000.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, that's a pretty spicy meatball.
I mean, I remember like way back to when I started, it was like there was nothing that was carded that was $1,000. Nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
And now it's like I think a Death Star droid is 1,000. That's like that figure.
Yeah.
Seems kind of insane.
Yeah. What's interesting is the way he did it in the auction is he shows the page where it is, and he's kind of like seems like he's almost like screen matching,
Yeah.
Kind of like it's almost like becoming in a way it's also prop collecting, but you don't get in neither of you does that stuff, right?
Yeah, I'm into prop collecting.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, just actually just had a few things, but really started getting into it more heavily in the last probably 2 years or so. So I've kind of transitioned because most of the toy stuff that I've wanted, I've got, except for just a few key things here and there that I keep my eye out for. But it was kind of like, there's not really anything here I can really just sort of keep collecting. So I kind of shifted over to the prop side. Yeah.
Right. And Duncan, you got the cast and crew, but do you do that as well?
I do. I have a pretty good collection of props, but they're so expensive that it is fairly limiting. And what I did on those was I decided to stop just getting kind of any prop and go for things that are just more iconic when you can see them and know instantly what they are, even if you're not a super huge Star Wars collector.
Right. Because I guess what I was thinking was, it seems to me that a lot of the collectors who remember when carded figures were $20, it seemed like a lot of them went into prop collecting, and that seemed to have made prop collecting, in addition to other things, go up. So I often wonder if there's like prop collectors who are sitting there like folding their arms, being like, "I remember when you could get Tarkin's pants for $100."
Oh, there absolutely is. Talk to some people like Brandon Nallinger or Stephen Lane, and they'll tell you stories about finding props at flea markets, just like we could tell you stories of finding proof cards at flea markets, and how used to be a Rebel blaster, I could get it for $500 and things like that. All those, it's kind of funny, the parallels between the prop collecting world and the toy collecting world, and even the timelines are really similar. Like sort of the golden age of at least the high-end Star Wars stuff was, I would say, probably 96 to 2002 was when there was this massive push for digging things up and finding it and bringing it to market, and it was like this golden age. And that was about the same time, maybe a little bit earlier, maybe like 1990 to 99, but that was about the same era where these prop guys, and not just for Star Wars, but for other movies as well, that whole prop collectibles hobby just really started to grow, and people were doing the same thing we were doing in Star Wars, is going and digging stuff up and calling the guys and going and visiting them and buying collections. And it's really kind of interesting how they parallel each other. And Brandon's a friend of mine, and we've discussed it some whenever we talk, which isn't very often, usually just at conventions and stuff. It's kind of cool. And I kind of oh man, if only I had been doing the movie stuff then instead of the toy stuff. What kind of things got found, but that's okay.
But there's some of us who are saying, if only I was doing the vintage stuff instead of the modern stuff. So
yeah, that's true.
Because it's not like my Star Wars Saga blue card, Luke with bloody stump, is eventually going to be worth $6,000. But well, I guess stranger things have happened. But yeah, no, that's that wound up being a lot more. Well, Steve, every time I ask you guys don't. This isn't something you can talk about. They talk for a long time. So
your trademark is stupidity.
It's good that maybe they can help me figure out why what the SKU on footer means. Did you see this? So there's a Darth Vader 12 back, and it's an 85, and it went for $6,100. So that's $2,000 more than the Empire Strikes Back Han-Hoth. Do you guys know what the SKU on footer is?
Well, the SKU is a number that's an ID number for that figure. The only thing I can think of is that maybe there's a matching number inside on that little tray. I don't know what the footer is, unless it would be that little cardboard piece inside the bubble that he's standing on. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that term.
Yeah, so actually I pronounced that. I was confused. I'm like, what's he talking about? You actually pronounce that SKU, not SKU. It's pronounced SKU.
He's as clumsy as he is stupid.
So it's a term. I can't remember exactly what it stands for. It's an acronym. It's sellable something unit. I can't remember what the K stands for. So it's a manufacturing term. A SKU would be like, a Hoover vacuum cleaner might be one SKU, and in that product line, they sell the bags separately, so the bags would be a SKU, and maybe they sell a replacement drive band, and that would be a SKU. So anything that's like the sellable unit is a SKU. So the footer is the piece that's underneath his feet, the little card panel that's under his foot. So apparently, and I mean, I had heard about these, but I didn't realize they were this kind of rarity that some of them have some things printed on that footer. So usually when you have SKUs manufacturing, there'll be a SKU number associated with it, so that when retailers or whatever are ordering your part, they'll order it by the SKU number. So you'll know, I want SKU 698847, and that'll be this thing, and they order it by a number rather than a description, because descriptions can be similar and confusing. So apparently this one would be one that had the SKU number was printed on that footer, and I guess that wasn't done very often, or it's pretty rare to see the SKU printed on the footer underneath his feet, but it doesn't actually show. Does it even show a picture on this eBay page? It doesn't really of the footer.
But in the description, it talks about how I guess the very first 12-back Vaders after the double telescoping were used. I guess had this footer with the printing of the SKU number on it. So,
yeah,
man, that's a huge premium for that. I didn't realize.
That is really kind of crazy for a variation like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go look and see if I got any SKUs.
SKUs.
No, it's SKUs. I got it right this time.
It's SKUs, yes.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I'm checking mine out right now, and I don't see any on mine, so
man.
I didn't win.
Did you get the Boba Fett with a half moon on his hand? Okay, yeah. So it's almost midnight here on the East Coast, which means that there's only time for one more thing, Steve.
That's feedback.
No, they're not going to sit around on feedback. They're going to get the lightning round, and then you and I can do feedback.
All right.
So we're going to ask them sort of a group lightning round question.
So be it.
The last bit of space chess discussion. So the first question is a new one, and so Steve gets to be asked the same question, which is, what is your favorite bad line of dialogue from a Star Wars film? Again, to give you the example, mine is "Pilot, land over there by that assembly area." That is my favorite bad line from a Star Wars movie. Steve, you've had a month to think about it. What is your favorite bad line from a Star Wars movie?
It's going to come from episode 3, and it's a one-word line. I don't know if you want to call it a word even, but it's when the Emperor just goes, "Yeah!"
Yeah.
Comes in the beginning of the movie, and that's when I knew, oh man, I'm in for some trouble.
Oh man, I love that line. Yeah. Oh wow! All right, how about you, Duncan? What's your favorite bad line from a Star Wars movie?
Could you tell Luke? Is that who you could tell? I kind of have bad scenes that I think about, as opposed to like bad lines or whatever, but just things that don't quite fit, or little mistakes that you can kind of find. And so like one example is Wicket or Wald and Kitster in The Phantom Menace when Anakin wins the pod race.
Oh, yeah.
One of them jumps up and the other one goes to high five him, and then they have to switch, and the other one's like, "Oh, high five," and then jump. The other one jumps.
Yeah, I love that because you can tell they're just so awkward and they just don't quite make it. But I gotta say,
there's a good one in Star Wars also where they're coming up out of the cargo hold from the Millennium Falcon, and Alec Guinness tries to jump out, and he realizes that he doesn't have quite the strength in order to get all the way out, so he just kind of stops and then kind of nods at Chewbacca.
Oh man, I never seen that, but I have to say I want to do a fan edit of Return of the Jedi where after he says, "You could tell Luke," is that who you could tell? And then it just ends there. Like, how awesome would it be if it ended with a note of discord and it's like, it just like, no, he's my brother, no yub nub. Oh, that's great. How about you, CJ? What's your favorite bad line?
Oh, I gotta say probably from Attack of the Clones, the truly deeply love you line, which was A, very cheesy, and B, delivered even cheesier.
Yeah, that's a pretty bad one.
It's pretty bad.
It's no pilot land over there by that assembly area. But all right, now, so then let's see. For the completist, what is your holy grail item that you're still looking for?
Well, that's kind of an interesting one because there's so many. That's the one good thing about being a completist is there's always something I need. So I can always find something. But so each category would kind of have its own thing.
But just if we could say one thing you could buy right now, anything in the Star Wars universe, what would it be?
I would really like the Droids cartoon series C-3PO carrying case. I think that's kind of something that I would really like, but I think that's kind of a one of.
Huh? So it's a droid.
The one with the cardboard sleeve, not just kind of loose by itself.
Oh, I'm a little bit out of my league here. I didn't know that was something that either was or was not made in great quantities. So but you know where one is, but you don't know if there's another.
Correct. There's one in our book, so you can take a guess as to who has it, and if it's not me.
Okay. Oh, so Matthias has it. All right. That makes sense. All right. How about you, CJ? Besides, or is it the poke, the pock?
No, I mean that's one of them. There's a couple things, but if I really have to go with what I'm more collecting today, which isn't so much the toys, I would have to say the macro binocular prop that was shown at the Prop Store of London display at last celebration. That thing was just pretty fantastic, and would fit right in with the whole Han-Hoth thing. So that's the only there's only like 2 Han-Hoth prop items that I know of that are out there. That's one of them, and the other one is the little miniature Tauntaun puppet clothing. I don't think the puppet still doesn't exist, but the clothing was in an auction recently. Actually, I believe Gus may have snagged that one. I'm not sure of that, but so the stop motion animation puppet clothing was out there, but I just think the macro binoculars would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Although it would be really hard not to take them out and just use them all the time. But,
especially in the winter and it's snowy.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, so then, in the event, Duncan, that the Sithsonian were besieged by a Russian meteor, what would be the one item? You could only take one from the nearly complete collection.
Well, this kind of ties in with an earlier episode when you were talking about IG-88.
Okay.
The large size IG-88 in box was my holy grail for 1980 to 1990. Just looked for that thing forever, and my then fiance knew that was something that I was really, really interested in. She didn't really understand the whole Star Wars thing, but she and my mom managed to track down one in box and gave it to me as a wedding gift.
Oh man, yeah, that's like the perfect gift, like a high-end Star Wars item that you didn't have. Cool. Oh man, well that's maybe the best answer we've ever had to that question. That's really good. It ties in previous episodes, and that really shows how rare and how valuable that item was. That's awesome. Well, I don't mean to set you up for a disappointing answer, CJ. What would be yours?
Oh no, Steve, because I have what is arguably one of the best stories ever of collecting. I will tell you right now.
Oh my God!
Sorry, Duncan, I'm going to outdo you on this one. So the one piece I would keep. So here's the story. Back in the days when I was going to Cincinnati quite often and visiting people, there's this one guy that we visited on several different trips. He had a couple friends and he had a lot of stuff. Actually, it was the guy who had the gigantic coin, all the hard copies and things like that. The same guy. So this was probably the 3rd time we went and visited him, and he was always kind of theatrical about the whole thing. He knew we were kind of excited, so he'd bring out these cardboard boxes and set them on the table. Don't look yet. I'm going to bring out, he'd go back, get another box. He'd walk kind of slow and just really making a production out of it. And so then once we open them up and start looking through them, it was, see all kinds of crazy and amazing things. It was just, he always had really high quality stuff. But there was only one trip I went on that my wife went with me. And so we're sitting there, and there was this one box that had some artwork and some prints and proofs and things like that in it. And so I'm rifling through it, and I'm pulling out a couple of these things, and I'm looking at it, and I pull out this one little piece. It was a piece of concept artwork for the die-cast Y-wing backdrop.
Huh.
It looks a lot like the Macquarie artwork of the Y-wing.
Okay.
But this was so one of the Kenner guys had taken that Macquarie artwork, obviously, sketched out his own concept version, and then they eventually made even a different version, which was the actual backdrop. So this was like a concept art piece. It was like marker and pencil. And I look down in the corner and see this name there, and I turn to my wife and I go, her name's Melinda. I said, Mel, look at this. You won't believe this. She looks at it and she goes, oh, that's nice. That's kind of cool. I said, no. Look at the name in the corner. And she looks down and she goes, oh my gosh, that's my uncle. We had found a piece of artwork that her uncle had drawn when he worked at Kenner in 1978 or 79.
Wow.
At this guy's house. And we're able to purchase that piece and bring it back into the family.
Oh, that's awesome.
So if I had to rescue one thing, that would be the piece, because that is the best story I have out of all my collecting years. So
yeah,
that's what I like about the collecting. I like the stories behind this stuff. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, is that like, I mean, we should have had you guys on for February. These are like the most romantic stories I've ever heard.
So that was just so cool to think that, like, I mean, what are the odds that I would meet her and we would get married, and then I would get involved in collecting and go down there and meet a guy, and that I'd be there and she'd be with me, and that he would have this piece that my uncle drew that got passed around for 15 years. I mean, the coincidences are just kind of staggering that could even happen.
Wow, that's awesome. Whew. Well, we're gonna have a hard time with the next guest trying to top those two. But unfortunately, Steve appears to have just dropped off. So he's not going to get to hear the answer to the last question and not going to be able to say goodbye. Why don't I just call you back so that way, and then we'll just be to answer the last question, then hang up. Is that all right?
Mm-hmm.
It'll feel weird if he's not there to say goodbye. Okay, one second.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, well, Steve, you just missed like two of the greatest collecting stories you will ever hear. They'll warm your heart. You'll be amazed with the cosmic nature of existence and the kismet that can exist between two souls in a seemingly random universe. But you're going to have to wait to hear it, because they're not going to tell it again. But I did make sure
just as much.
I did make sure to bring you back in time for the great cosmic question.
Okay.
Seeing as we're getting philosophical, so we'll do it snake style here, and we'll ask CJ now: if you were a piece of vintage Star Wars memorabilia, which one would you be?
Well, I thought about this a lot, and I think I would have to choose an old school vintage iron-on transfer T-shirt.
Nice.
Yeah, good call.
I had so many of those things when I was a kid, and I remember going to the little shops in the mall, and you go in there, and all these things are plastered up on the wall, and you got to pick which shirt you wanted, and you got to pick which one you wanted, and then iron on right there for you.
Oh, that's great. And you see that this is why we should probably have definitely more completists on, because now I just want to know, like, what are the hard iron-ons to find? Were they made in different countries? All that kind of stuff.
I couldn't answer you there. Maybe Duncan can.
Yeah.
It's all in the book.
It's all in the book. All right. Well, then I did have one more idea just to float out, because you guys are unlike Steve. You pay attention to Star Wars. I was thinking about making, because they canceled Clone Wars and you don't know what happened to Ahsoka, making Ahsoka Tano Lives like shirts, but misspelling her name. Like Darth Vadar lives. And I was thinking,
that's a great tie. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so it could be like Ahsoka Tano, like Tahno, like Tano lives. I don't know. It seemed to me to be a good idea that would only be really appreciated by a small subsection of people who know about the original misspelling and appreciate Clone Wars. So
Well, that's half the fun right there, is to be so elitist that nobody else is going to figure it out.
Exactly. Yeah. So then that brings you, Duncan. We figured out what's the one thing you would save. Well, Steve hasn't figured it out because his internet connection in his new love nest is not working. But if you were one, which one would you be?
Oh, that wasn't me, by the way.
Yeah, sorry. That was CJ. He's allergic to your insight.
That's right. Well, it's kind of funny talking about the iron-on T-shirts because in 8th grade, we all had to do presentations, speeches in class. And it had to be like, I think, 5 minutes or 10 minutes long, what it was. You know, most people were dreading theirs. And I ended up doing on Star Wars collecting, and it ended up taking the entire hour. And one of the things that I did...
The first panel ever given by Duncan.
That was my very first panel. You're right. That was where it all started.
Wait, what year was this again?
1980, 80 or 81. I think it was 80.
Wow.
Man.
Yeah, and so one of the things I did was I wore every single Star Wars T-shirt that I had, and so I had over 20 T-shirts on at one time. And so I came in and said, they made a lot of Star Wars items, and that was back then. They made, red Darth Vader T-shirts, and I took it off, and then it'd be like a green Jawa shirt, and took it off, the yellow Chewbacca shirt, and so and so just kept on going, and people were just rolling on the floor thinking it was pretty fun.
Oh man, you have got to do that as an MC one of these years of
Yes.
celebration.
Yes.
You have to.
Oh yeah, like we'll start passing the hat now to raise. You name the charity. We're going to do the full Monty Strip show with Duncan wearing as many vintage pieces of clothing as possible. Like, they made a lot of different kinds of windbreakers. They made a lot of different kinds of sweatshirts. They made a lot of different kinds of socks.
I'll draw the line at the underoos, though.
Yeah, exactly. At the last underoo, like you have to have one as the base layer, but you can take off a few layers of underoo. Wow, and of course, it's hard to picture you as anything other than looking the way you do now. So I just see, like, a long-haired, guy, like, in 1980. I just see you then, now, That's great.
Sadly, that was not the case. I didn't grow the hair out until after I got out of high school, so I was just a little wallflower back in those days.
Yeah. So let's...
So to answer your real question...
Yes.
I would definitely be a collect them all store display.
Nice.
Perfect.
You don't even have to explain it. That's excellent. Awesome. Well, thank you guys both so much. You've, I remember when I asked you, if you do it, you're like, how long? Like, probably no more than an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I don't know how long it's been. But it's been great having you guys on, and thanks for putting up with technical difficulties and just our kind of weirdness. And we really appreciate having you guys come on.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
My pleasure. I've had a great time. And just as an aside, because in honor of this being Han-Hoth, and while we were recording here, I just found out that I won an auction for a Return of the Jedi Palatoy Han-Hoth, so can add that to the market watch.
Wow.
Very nice.
How much did you win it for?
About 50 pounds, so I think that's about $75 or so. Not too bad.
Yeah, excellent.
Cool.
Hey, that was super real-time market watch.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, we'll see you guys down the line, and thanks again.
All right, thanks.
All right, take care.
Bye.
I see your point, sir.
All right.
Whew. Well, that was a good talk here there, Steve.
Yeah, it was good.
It's just a wealth of information. It's so funny. Vic, are you involved in that club? I started it. Oh, cool. Are you involved in this? Yeah, I named it. Oh, how about that?
You're good at scouting talent for the show, Scott, I gotta say.
Yeah, I'm not good at researching what they actually are done, but yeah. Well, yeah, it took a real genius to do Han-Hoth and then ask the world's #1 Han-Hoth collector to come on and talk. And there was more about the early bird reaction. So there was there was actually scooped out, and it wasn't by a Canadian know-it-all. It was actually by Sean Kay. And,
Okay.
I'm not going to read them all because, well, it's like 12:30 and I've got to wake up and drive the kids and I've got to go get a conference on appearance of Islam and French hip hop videos. And I have so many midterms to grade, Steve. I don't know why I assign these things. Anyways, there's kind of a neat one that he points out that was from the Mount Airy News. And it just kind of, it's like a conspiracy theory saying that they're trying to create a shortage of Star Wars toys on purpose. Which I don't think is true. There's also a pretty good picture that was posted of a Star Wars early bird on a Christmas tree.
Yeah, that is pretty good.
And I don't know where that picture came from, but it's a pretty good piece. In general, though, I would say they're and it was Ross who shared that picture with us. So I have even more Canadian love, as long as it was the Canadian Ross, right?
Yeah, I think that's the Ross we're thinking of.
Yeah, it's Canadian Ross. But there actually wasn't that much feedback this month. I don't know if it was something we said. I don't know if it was too long. People never finished listening to the end of it. Paul did revolt against the Vintage Pod name change.
Yeah.
We had a couple people talk about starting a petition. Once it doesn't work, we'll go back to calling it Chive Cast Classic, and we'll go back to that. Got a nice email from Derek who mentions that Vader screams because you have to breathe in through the respirator, so it was probably unpleasant. We did get a visit from Canada's greatest know-it-all.
This is why I'm proud to be Canadian.
This season on Canada's greatest know-it-all.
That's right. Another great picture. He always has photographic evidence, which I love.
Yep, and it's of the 12-inch Han-Hoth wearing his scarf in a bow.
Yes.
Kind of like a cat in the hat bow. And then, what else does he have, Steve?
He has a red lightsaber.
Now, what I'm wondering is, was he ever going to have a lightsaber to imitate the Tauntaun scene? Probably not.
Probably not.
But I always did love how Han just seemed to be so uncomfortable holding on to the lightsaber.
Yeah, that was something I definitely picked up on as a kid, too. I'm like, he's not supposed to have that.
Yeah. And even the modern toys, they pack them with a lightsaber now. And it's just, it just feels wrong. Although, I have to say, I may have gotten my favorite bit of feedback ever, Steve.
Someone's liking your tunes.
Yeah, someone emailed me from Dundee, Scotland, and I've actually been to Dundee, Scotland. It's not on the tourist junket of Scotland. I stopped there because I love the Smiths, and they have the song "Hang the DJ," and he talks about Dundee, and I like crocodiles. So we actually had been there, so that was kind of fun. But he said, he just discovered it and he's getting back into it. And then he asked me, where did I find the music? And he said, it reminds me of the old Kenner TV commercials, but it's much groovier. What is it? And Steve, that just tickled my ego.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
Because I'm a failed musician, I wanted to be a rock and roll star when I was in high school. And now my greatest contribution to music is an intentional ripoff of the old Kenner song. So,
but it's an original composition, right?
Yep, it's 100% original. That song, we could never be sued for that. Every other drop we'd have to take off. But that song is inspired by, and if you listen to them back to back, you can tell. The main thing I wanted to get, because it's actually all thanks to Chris Gerglius's Kenner video. You'd kind of skip through to find the one that you want.
Yeah.
Just every single one. Go. probably not Burke when I say that. Do, 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 do.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. So even those guys were trying to get around using Williams music.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
It's like a third generation, bootleg of the original Star Wars theme.
It works.
Yep. So that works, and that's that. And Steve, that leaves us to the fact that what's happening next week, Steve.
That would be the fantasy baseball draft.
Yes, just the sound of 1,000 Chivecast listeners screaming in agony. So that'll be pretty fun. I've already asked Steve, how many mock drafts have you done?
I'm gonna go with a goose egg on that one.
Dude, you gotta get in the game, Steve. This is your year.
What do you mean it's my year?
This is your year. Yeah. And for our Canadian listeners out there, I am currently in first place in the pool that I'm in. So you'd be proud of me, Canadians. I got back into hockey, and I'm wicked into it. And I've got my favorite players, Evander Kane and Brizgalov, a Russian and a guy who people in Winnipeg don't like. And I've officially lost my mind, Steve, because I'm talking way too much about a Winnipeg Jet. But I'm making some Canadians happy. And in the end, that's what we really want. So, with that, Steve, do you know who our next month figure is?
Actually don't know for sure. I'm just gonna throw out a guess. Would it be Lando?
Hello. Who do we have here? That's right. And I don't know. I don't know how many Lando collectors are out there. Maybe it would be a good time to actually get back in touch with Brock.
Feel my heat. Feel my heat.
We look forward to talking to you all next month. I hope you enjoy the episode. And what was the one more thing I was going to say? Wampa Wampa!
Adios.